Madam Chair, we're ready to begin.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Welcome to the Monday, April 26, 2021 City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that this Planning Commission meeting is being held using the Zoom webinar format. So you will see that all planning commissioners and staff are panelists. Please note that there are several ways to submit comments during this meeting. You may raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom webinar by phone can dial *9 to raise a hand. You may also submit your comment using chat in Zoom by clicking on the chat button also located at the bottom of your screen. Staff will then read the comments at the appropriate time. Please be aware that chats will be seen by all panelists, meaning that all commissioners and staff will see your chat, and they are not anonymous. Lastly, you may send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails throughout the course of this meeting, and they will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the emailed comments should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are an applicant or the applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your item is up, and then we could prepare you to speak when it is your turn. We will also ask that if you can, please turn on your video at the time so that we can basically mimic as closely as possible having conversation and meeting in person. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. So we will now move on to agenda item number 2, roll call. The record should note that all 7 members of the Planning Commission are present this evening. And before we move on to agenda item number 3, I would like to just say that tonight is the last meeting for one of our commissioners, Commissioner Rich Sargent, and we have prepared a resolution to read on his behalf. So please bear with me. Resolution of the Planning Commission, City of Burlingame, April 26, 2021, honoring Rich Sargent for 9 years of service as a planning commissioner. Whereas Rich Sargent has served on the Planning Commission of the City of Burlingame for the past 9 years, where he shared his professional experience in construction and design to assist and lead the commission, and independently pursued his keen interest in architecture to support the commission's work. And whereas Rich Sargent served as chairman of the commission in 2013, managing the public processing of the commission's actions on 95 projects, and served as the secretary of the commission in 2012. And whereas Rich Sargent has made an immeasurable contribution by lending his design insight and construction experience in the city's efforts to achieve neighborhood compatibility, which has permanently improved the quality of the city's residential, commercial, and mixed-use neighborhoods. Whereas Rich Sargent has willingly given many hours of his time working both with staff and fellow commissioners on the Neighborhood Consistency Subcommittee, tongue-tied this evening, which has served as the cornerstone for the city's design review policies. Whereas Rich Sargent will be long remembered by the commission and city staff for his supportive goodwill and professional desire to keep the meetings focused on business and city interests. Now, therefore, the members of the Burlingame Planning Commission extend their sincere best wishes to Rich Sargent and thank him for his insights and contributions to the city and its citizens for the last 9 years. And we wish him the joys of sharing time with his family that was otherwise dedicated to the city and citizens of Burlingame. Sincerely, myself, Audrey Say, Chair, Richard Turonis, Vice Chair, Sandy Camarado, Commissioner Michael Gall, Commissioner William Loftus, and Commissioner John Schmid. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
Great work.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm trying to think of something witty to say, but I'll just say thank you for all your support. And it's been great working with you. And I just want to give a special recognition to the staff. They're just so great. I've worked in a lot of cities, and it's just really great to have such great staff supporting us. And I know I don't speak just for myself when I say this. They make us look good, and I appreciate that. So thank you all.
Well said. Thank you. All right, then. Now we will move on to agenda. Sorry?
Chair?
Yes.
Could we say,
Oh, yes, we do. Yeah. Would anybody like to say a few words?
if I
Yes,
could,
Vice Chair Tronis.
thank you. I'm going to read something because if I don't, I might drone on, as you guys know, and filibuster for another year to keep you here, Rich. Okay, well, I've always been glad to be your brother from another mother, because if we were from the same mother, it would be really weird that mom picked the same name for both of us. In all seriousness, I've really enjoyed our time as colleagues on the commission. I truly believe that it is the balance of 7 minds, often in agreement and sometimes in disagreement, but always in harmony, that makes for a successful commission and serves the community well. As a community member, I'm grateful for your service on the commission and your dedication to the effort. I'm also grateful for your commitment to our community as a local builder, and I've long admired your skills and dedication to your craft. You're a great builder, and the beauty of your projects goes beyond the mere bricks and mortar, and I believe that this talent has contributed to your work on our commission. So as this becomes dangerously close to being a eulogy, I'll close by saying that I'm glad you will still be around as my neighbor and as my friend. Thanks, Rich.
Well, thank you so much, Richard Sargent. I appreciate it, from Richard Taronis.
Thank you.
It's been great working with you, Richard. I've learned so much from you, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else? And if not, we will move on and move on to item number 3, approval of minutes, for which we have none this evening. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, approval of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, there are no changes from staff.
Thank you. So with regards to recusals, I believe we have a number of recusals this evening. So to help me stay organized, I'm just going to call off each item on our agenda. And if you are going to be recusing, please let me know then and the reason why. Item 7A, 1555 Los Altos Drive. 7B, 1105 Oxford Road. Item 8A, 232 Bloomfield Road.
I'll be recusing, Madam Chair. I'm the applicant.
All right.
I'll be recusing as well. I sold the property to the clients.
Thank you. Item 8B, 1320 Mills Avenue.
Madam Chair, I'll be recused for non-statutory reasons on that one.
Thank you. Item 8B, 949 Laguna.
I will be recusing from that one since I sold it to the client.
Thank you. Item 8D, 1095 Rollins Road. Item 9A, 2411 Easton Drive.
Madam Chair, I'll be recused on that one also for non-statutory reasons.
Thank you. Item 9B, 728 Lexington Way. Item 9C, 1820 Castaneda Drive. Item 9D, 1120 Cortez. Item 9E, 7 La Mesa Court. I will be recusing from that item as I live within 500 feet of the property. And item 9F, 1244 El Camino Real.
Madam Chair, I'll be recused from that one as our firm is the architect for the project.
Thank you. Now we move on to agenda item number 5, public comments, non-agenda items. Members of the public may speak on any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph and Brown Act, which is the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. A timer may sound at the end of the time. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on an item this evening that is not on our agenda? You can raise your hand, send a chat. Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to the next item. Items.
Madam Chair, we do have one hand raised by Fiona Chow. I believe. Not sure if you wanted to speak on an item or if we're just going to take it.
Let me ask, Fiona Chow, is that the name? Are you raising your hand for a future item, or is there something you'd like to speak about at this time? Please, well, it looks like you're unmuted. Hello, Fiona? All right, so maybe it's for something later on. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 6, study items. We have no study items this evening, so we'll move on to agenda item number 7, consent calendar. There are 2 items, 7A 1555 Los Altos Drive and 7B 1105 Oxford Road. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine. They are acted on simultaneously unless separate discussion and/or action is requested by the applicant, a member of the public, or a commissioner prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to adopt. Would any member of the public or the applicant like to pull this item for discussion? And would any members of the Planning Commission like to pull this item for discussion? Again, raise your hand, send a chat. Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Please, Rich.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Commissioner Loftus. Is there any discussion on the motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid, Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Vice Chair Toronis,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0-0. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Now we'll move on to agenda item 8, regular action items. The first item is 8A 232 Bloomfield Road. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak when it is your turn. And again, please turn on your video at that time if possible. For any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none. Well, we have 2 commissioners recusing, Commissioner Camerado and Commissioner Sargent. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review and a special permit for declining height envelope for a new 2-story single-family dwelling at 232 Bloomfield Road. This is zoned R1. The applicant's proposing to demolish the existing two-story single-family dwelling and attached garage and construct a new two-story single-family dwelling with a detached garage. The total floor area would be 4,013 square feet, where 4,023 square feet is the maximum allowed under the zoning code. The new house would contain 5 bedrooms. This requires a total of 3 parking spaces, 2 of which must be covered, and those would be provided in the new detached garage. The proposed second story does encroach into the declining height envelope by 98 square feet on the left side. Therefore, the applicant is applying for a special permit. There are 2 protected size trees on the property, as well as an unprotected tree that would be removed as part of this project. The applicant has provided a certified arborist report and will be required to apply for a protected tree removal permit. All of the trees are within the footprint of the proposed building. Staff has reviewed this, Planning Commission reviewed this project on March 22nd. At that time, there were some comments on the project, and the applicant submitted revised plans, date stamp March 24th. Staff has summarized those changes for you in the staff report and also provided you recommended findings for the design review application as well as for the special permit application. Planning Commission should conduct a public hearing on this application and consider all public testimony and the analysis contained in the staff report. Action should include specific findings supporting the Planning Commission's decisions and should be affirmative by resolution of the Planning Commission. The reasons for such action should be clearly stated for the record. And at the public hearing this evening, there are 14 conditions of approval which should be considered and are provided for in your staff report. There were no public comments received on this project, and that concludes my staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Oh, seeing none. I will now open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding your project?
Yeah, hi, James Chu, Chu Design Associates. I believe the owner has a very brief statement to make after apparently they met the neighbors and there was some discussion to the landscaping and design. So I'm not sure if the owner's here tonight.
Yes.
Hi.
Oh,
Yes.
hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi, James.
Hey, James.
Hi. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I think we've mentioned it before, but we really love the design of the house. We're really excited about it, and do feel like it fits into the neighborhood. And as the commission asked, we added some incremental landscaping to, I think, some greenscaping in the back. And in working with the Donnellys, who are the neighbors to the left of the house, have agreed to put in a tree that they've requested, I believe, in a Zara tree. And take down reduce the height of the chimney as well. There was another ask that we considered, and it ended up feeling like it didn't quite meet the needs of our family, and we're kind of excited about the house, or prefer the house the way that it's, as architected, and so that's kind of where we left things. But we appreciate the time and looking forward to the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to add that the changes made on the landscaping were very minor. The line pocket was added along the driveway toward the rear. We added a raised planter, increased the lawn area, and also again we added the privacy screening along the left side. So we hope you like the changes and approve the project tonight. Again, I'd like to answer any question you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Toronis?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess my question is maybe of the owners and of you, James. You said that you had indicated or that you were agreeable to planting the boxleaf azara that the neighbors had asked for, but what I'm seeing on the plans are the pittosporum.
Well, let me explain that. So the plan was submitted on March 24th.
Yeah.
And the discussion was after the plan was submitted. So we obviously will update that when we apply for a building permit.
Okay, so we might be able to capture that as just a condition, but so that's one thing.
Correct.
The other one
Sure.
is lowering of the chimney. I see that it's a direct vent chimney. It sounds like, it looks like you could lower that by, 2 or 3 feet and still break your eave line, architecturally, but not have it as tall. Is that what I'm seeing?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So possibly also another condition or something, but so you're
Correct.
agreeable to those couple of
That's,
things the neighbor
yeah,
requested.
correct. These are very minor,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
we
I agree.
agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Would anyone from the public like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand or send a chat really quickly. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioners, any comments? Vice Chair Toronis?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I felt it was a nice project previously. I'm glad that the owners were able to meet with the neighbors and come to some agreements. I was a little confused, but I get it now just in terms of the timing. So if a couple of those items that were mentioned, the type of hedge along that left property line and lowering the chimney, if those things could be addressed, perhaps as additional conditions, I think that the project is approvable. Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt?
I agree wholeheartedly and don't have any further comment.
All right. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair. Sorry.
Oh, you go ahead, Richard.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the project with 2 added conditions. One, that the hedge along the left side property line be changed from pittosporum to boxleaf azera. And secondly, that the chimney be lowered perhaps 2 or 3 feet. Could still break the eave line as shown, but not be quite as tall as indicated. And those things could just be tracked by staff and moving forward.
I second.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Toronis, seconded by Commissioner Schmidt. Is there any discussion on this motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Vice Chair Toronis,
Aye.
and Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 5-0-2-0. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Moving on to agenda item 8B, 1320 Mills Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak when it is your turn. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? And I have Vice Chair Toronis recusing from this item. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
This is an application for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling at 1320 Mills Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing single-family dwelling to build a new 2-story single-family dwelling. The existing detached 2-car garage will be converted into 1 parking space for the main dwelling and a new accessory dwelling unit. Proposed house will have a total floor area of 3,280 square feet, where 3,420 square feet is a maximum allowed. At the Planning Commission Design Review Study meeting on April 12th, The commission overall liked the project, but requested that the applicant provide a 3D rendering of the front elevation to show the proposed articulation more clearly. The applicant submitted revised plans, date stamped April 14th, to address your request. And now, as you can see on your screen, there's a 3D rendering provided showing the front and right side of the house. Also, the air conditioning unit was moved towards the rear of the property as was requested by the adjacent neighbor. Design review, suggested findings for design review are found on page 3 of your staff report. And at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions of staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding your project? Applicant, if you are speaking, you are muted.
All right. Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time this evening. So one thing I do want to point out, on one of the elevations, the AC unit is still shown in the old location, but that's incorrect. If you look on the site plan, it is moved back a little bit at the request. So yeah, so on the so the request of the neighbors to the left, we moved that AC unit back from where it was before. But on one of the elevations, I do want to point out that there is a mistake in the drawing, and the AC unit actually should be shifted more towards the back. I do want to point that out right there. So yeah, so that is supposed to be shifted back. So I want to go on the record saying that it's supposed to be shifted back according to the site plan. And then for the articulation facade, we did provide that 3D perspective rendering of the front right there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, I just had one question, and just because I'm familiar with that neighborhood a little bit, but have you checked with Public Works about the line of the flood zone down there?
Yeah, we noted that on the that was one of the comments that we put on the plans. We had to kind of file an initial kind of I can't remember the name of it, but with FEMA, just getting a kind of basically stating that we're going to be 30 inches above that floodplain, and we'll have to obviously prove that, you know, we'll have to build it 30 inches above that.
Okay, yeah, just as long as you're aware.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Would anyone from the public like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand or send a chat. Do we have any emails?
There are no emails and no chats submitted for this project.
Okay, and I don't see any raised hands. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Schmid.
Yes, I want to thank you for the rendering. I really appreciate that, because that really does show the articulation along the front. I think it's a huge help in showing everything. So thank you very much. And I'm assuming that the material palette is going to match more closely to the original submittal and or what we saw on screen versus, I think one of the prints that I got was washed out and I got like a emerald green instead of a darker green. So, but I appreciate it. I think it looks good. And that really helped sell it for me tonight. So I can support this project.
Commissioner Camarado.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Schmidt. I think you did a really great job on the project and it looks really nice. And thanks for the extra work that you did on the 3D. So I can support this project.
Commissioner Loftus.
Yeah, I'll be very brief because we've got piano lessons going on here, and I can't leave the microphone on too long. I think that as Commissioner Smith said, thanks for the 3D rendering, which which did demonstrate that the building is well articulated. We thought it was well crafted before. I move that we approve this project.
I second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Loftus, seconded by Commissioner Sargent. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, can we roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
and Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-1-0. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeals fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. So now we move on to agenda item 8C, 949 Laguna Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please now raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? I have Commissioner Camarado recusing from this item. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, and before I go into the staff report, I just want to make sure that we do have applicants here this evening. So if you could raise your hand. I don't see their hands raised just yet, but.
We did have one, and she is now a panelist.
Got it. Great, thank you. All right, this is an application for an amendment to design review for as-built changes to a previously approved new two-story single-family dwelling at 949 Laguna Avenue, zoned R2. An application for design review and special permits for height and declining height envelope were approved by the Planning Commission on September 14th of 2015. Since the approval, the property and approved plans were sold to a different owner, and a building permit was issued in October of 2016. Planning staff was contacted to perform a final inspection for the project on September 16th, 2020. And during this inspection, a large number of as-built revisions were noted. Planning staff has been working with the applicant quite extensively since that time to resolve and eliminate the as-built revisions. However, the applicant has elected to keep some of the changes and bring them back to the Planning Commission as an application for design review amendment. In a letter date stamped April 8th, 2021, the applicant details the remaining as-built changes to the approved design that he would like to retain, and those items are also summarized in your staff report. Planning staff would note that after the failed final inspection in September, the applicant did do some major work to the completed house to bring the design closer to the originally approved design. Lastly, I would also note that staff worked quite a bit with the applicant to produce the plans you have before you this evening. However, you may find that there may be some inaccuracies still on the plans, but it was the best that staff could do with this applicant. Suggested findings are found in your staff report. The applicant is here, but if you have any questions for staff, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Loftus.
Yes, one question. It says the number of corbels under the second floor overhangs have been reduced. Is it just this number, or is it also the number and the size as well?
I think it could be both the number and the size compared to the originally approved.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Commissioner Sargent.
Yeah, Ruben, it looks to me like there's a mistake in the staff report on the first item. It notes about the wood window trim. It's actually not a 1x4 that's there. It's some kind of stucco mold. It has some profile, but I think it's closer to a 1x3.
Okay, great. We'll take note of that in the staff report. So it's not flat. There's some sort of profile, but the size is also different.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I will now open the public hearing. Oh, would the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project?
Yeah, it's Peter Charles. So good evening, commissioners. So we try our best to kind of resubmit the drawing to comply with the original roof plan that's dated back on April 7th. So we make the major changes for the rear fence that's lower than 10 feet, which now is 6 feet from finished floor to the top of the fence. And also the rear deck, we actually make the major changes to comply with the original approved plan, no more than 30 feet in height. And also the other small items. So due to the budget and also the time, and because of the pandemic last year, so we actually running out of funds to kind of redo all those other small items.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, so Mr. Chow, you're the property owner as well as the architect, is that correct?
Property owner, yeah.
And okay, so did you also act as the architect? I know you weren't the original designer, but did you oversee the project as it was going along?
Yes.
Okay, so you were familiar then with the conditions of approval, specifically condition number 2, that changes in the materials or finishes should come back to the planning department.
Mm-hmm.
And also with number 12, that did you have a framing inspection to certify like the roof that it was in compliance with the framing plan that was provided to us originally?
Yes, that's correct. So I actually filed structural revision. I think that's back in 2019. So we make the changes for the foundation and also the framing, the roof framing as well. So the original design was spec out for roof truss, but then we shift that to a regular stick framing.
Yeah, but we have one change, I think, where the dormer was extended or made larger. When was it? That the roof plan was altered in several ways, with the main difference being at the second floor ridge extension of the gable. But did we get notified of that, or did someone bring that up to the planning department? I mean, I'm trying to find the disconnect here where a lot of this dropped off. Ruben,
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Ruben, do we have any record of that?
Yes, yeah, we do have a revision drawing for that, for the structural changes.
Okay.
The disconnect could be that the revision may not have been forwarded to the planning department. That could be a disconnect. We can certainly look into that and see if that occurred. But this change, staff didn't go out till the end of the project, and that's where we noticed the changes.
Okay. All right, I don't have any further questions at this point.
Commissioner Loftus.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm fully understand what's going on. So this is entirely new construction, correct? And
that's correct.
And when you bought the property, construction had not started?
No, when we bought the property with the drawing from the original architect and engineer. So we start the construction, I think, a month after we purchased the property.
Okay, so you purchased the property and you purchased the plans, and then you started the project, and you were aware that that any changes, significant changes, needed to come back to the Planning Commission before the changes were made?
I was not that familiar with that, so I thought that was smaller change.
Was your contractor familiar with that? Does your contractor work in Burlingame regularly?
No, not really.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, oh, sorry, Commissioner Loftus already spoke. Anybody else? I will now ask anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item. Please raise your hand, send a chat, or a quick email.
Madam Chair, there are no emails.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, there are no emails, but there is a chat that came in, and I can read that to you now. Dean Peterson at 953 Laguna Avenue. I support the recommendations as made in the staff report. Further, I have no objections to the applicant's proposal and look forward to welcoming new neighbors in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all the hard work. Yeah, I really do appreciate it. Yeah.
And there are no other comments or no other chats.
It looks like we have one more a chat that came in. Does this structure now exceed height limit?
The staff report notes that there's no change to the height as was originally proposed.
All right. Then if there is nothing else from the public, I will now close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments?
So I wanted, if I could just make one comment at the start of the discussion. Ruben, there's one other mistake I noticed in the staff report that I actually wanted to point out because I think it's relevant to our discussions, which is that the front porch columns aren't actually square, they're rectangular. So I just wanted to make sure all commissioners had that in front of them as we consider this.
Thank you, Commissioner Sargent. In terms of comments, Commissioner Loftus? You may be muted, Commissioner Loftus.
Yeah, piano lessons, I'll keep it brief. You know, given our discussion at the joint meeting with City Council the other day on this topic, you know, I frankly, this looks like a very cheap version of the approved project. And I would not have voted to approve this project without significant, you know, input on it. So, but now we're in a situation where I'm not sure I feel, you know, free to make a determination such as that. So, you know, I feel hamstrung again. I don't like it.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Loftus. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to staff for working with the applicant and trying to make this better and trying to institute some changes. You know, but I understand the applicant wanting to come forward and see if they can get permission for acceptance of these revisions. But frankly, I can't accept most, if not all, of the proposed revisions. That dormer on the left side, or what was going to be a secondary gable on the left side, which is now just, I don't know what you call it in terms of an offset peak that, I don't know what you call it. That would not have been acceptable. We probably would have sent something like that to a design review consultant to have it work through, and it probably would have ended up with what was originally proposed as that secondary gable. You know, there are a couple things that may be somewhat de minimis that may be acceptable, like the front door, the transom windows on the back door. But the other issues that are noted are just too substantial and would not have been acceptable. So I could not approve those. On the porch columns, they may look okay in elevation, but I did notice what Commissioner Sargent was pointing out. They're not square columns. They look like paper thin when you get anywhere oblique to a straight on view. You know, and so, you know, unfortunately, the new owners who bought the project, they've sort of now turned it into what was new construction is now sort of a fixer-upper, unfortunately. And is either going to have to go through some major revision or propose something that makes the design more acceptable. But what's proposed is not acceptable in my mind. So it's unfortunate, but I think we have to, draw the line at some point. Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the small corbels don't work. The lack of corbels don't work. The lost wood belly band doesn't work. The plumbing vents coming out of the side of the elevation in the gable that became whatever it became, none of that works. And I think that the stucco trim around the windows really diminishes the windows as well. So it doesn't really add the value and the charm that the original design had. So I would agree. I couldn't support the changes as drawn and as are there now.
Commissioner Gall.
I agree. It's unfortunate, but here we are again. Specifically for me, the wood trim around the windows and doors is not what we were looking for. I remember this project specifically, and it's a big house in a small neighborhood, and it's not working. And when I drove up the street and turned around, it was even worse. So I can't accept the wood trim around the windows. The fascia with the square termination doesn't work. That was a nice little detail. The front porch columns not only are not the size they were, the capitals at the top are non-existent. The corbels under the second floor overhangs look like something that was left over from another project. The gable trim at the end on the left-hand side, and then there's another one that's not even listed, and that's that arbor and lattice on the driveway side has been reduced to something that quite frankly looks like a first-year woodworking project. So I can't accept these changes. I think it's going to need to be reworked.
Commissioner Sargent. I believe you're muted, Commissioner Sargent.
I would agree and with what's been said, and I make a motion that we deny the design amendment, and I'm open to suggestions. And I think there may be one or two things that are acceptable, but I think based on what everybody said, I'd say most are not. I guess the fourth one, the window location at the front elevation, the front door design, and the transom in the back are acceptable to me, but I'm open to any suggestions by other commissioners. But anyway, I move to deny the application with the exception of those 4 items.
Commissioner Loftus.
Yeah, I would second that, the motion to deny, and I want to just be more specific. The things that I think absolutely have to be addressed are the window trim, the corbels, and the columns on the front. I might get those things just make and I should say the thing that's hanging on the sidewall, whatever it's called, the lattice work. Those things really look cheap, and I think if those could be fixed, it could be passable. But those are sort of the minimal changes I could see requiring.
Yeah, I'm happy to revise my motion to add the trellis on the right, which I think you're referring to, and to your kind of must-have list. I think the gable on the left, something has to be done with that. There's no way it would have been approved initially, and I think those, as Commissioner Turon has pointed out before, those front columns, I'm not sure I've ever even seen the detail done like that, and I can be confident that nobody on the commission would have approved it initially.
So
go ahead, Vice Chair Taranis.
No, I was just going to ask for so a little bit of clarification on the motion, or just a summary of what we're accepting, or vice versa, what we're denying, perhaps.
Okay, so I'll just go down the list and I'll say,
Okay, great.
Number 1, not accepted. Number 2, not accepted. Number 3, I mean, I think that can't be accepted because the gable on the left needs to change. So number 4, accepted. Number 5, accepted. Number 6, denied. Number 7, denied. Number 8, accepted. Number 9, denied. And then I would add a number 10, the trellis on the vine trellis on the right front.
As denied.
Denied.
Got it. Thank you.
And I would second that list.
All right, so I do see that the applicant has his hand raised, and we have recently been reopening the public hearing just to allow the applicant to say anything that could add to this discussion at this point. Am I allowed to do that, City Attorney?
That's certainly within your discretion, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'm just
If
going.
we do open it, though, we should open it to all the public once we're concluded with the applicant, though.
Certainly.
So Madam Chair, man, just I certainly respect your discretion to reopen the hearing, and I wouldn't ask you not to do it, but I would just like to make a comment that every time we do reopen these hearings like this, it's usually not for the applicant to add something, but it's more for them to question our decisions and raise new questions that could be answered by staff in the following day. So I certainly defer to your discretion on this, but we have a long agenda, and so I just wanted to make that point. And again, I defer to your discretion on this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We've just been doing that a few times lately, and I feel, to be fair, that this is not someone from the public who'd like to speak, but actually the applicant. And I just want to give him that opportunity if he wants to get something clarified, if there's anything. So, Mr. Chow, if you have something that you would like to clarify or ask us, or it looks like his hand went, oh, see now a panelist. Mr. Chow, so did you have something to add?
Yeah. So, thank you for this comment from the commissioners. So, the bottom line is I'm willing to fix all the on the side of the trellis and also the front of the columns. Make sure to match with the original approved plan, and also.
Mr. Chow. So you don't have to list for us right now what you'd be willing to improve. I'm just opening the public hearing so that you can just clarify something, or if you have a quick question.
One thing I want to point out is the gable roof. It's really a big of an issue for me to kind of pretty much like tear down the entire second floor to reframe the whole left side of the house. So that would be significantly increase a constant cost on my end. So so that is the only thing that I'm concerned about. The other item that you point out, I'm willing to fix that as best as I can to match with the plan.
Okay, well, thank you. We understand that. That was why some of the questions came to you at the beginning of this discussion from Commissioner Gall to ascertain your understanding of the requirements. So if that's it, I will ask if there's anybody else in the public who would like to speak on this item before I close the public hearing again. Don't see any chats or hands up, so I will now close the public hearing again. And we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Commissioner Loftus. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, may we have a roll call vote, please? Sorry, I see some hands up. Commissioner Loftus.
I guess so it is possible we're denying the request, but we haven't given clear direction to go back and build it as it was approved. What we're saying, I would think, is to fix some stuff, but are we leaving open the possibility that the applicant could go to an architect, designer, to come back to us with a proposed different solution to the major gable change? Or are we saying build it the way it was approved? This is an important distinction, I believe.
I mean, my understanding of the motion, and maybe the city attorney would want to correct me or staff, is that we're just saying what they've proposed as a change is not acceptable. So they have two choices. One, they could build it as approved, or they could come back with an alternative.
Perfect. That's the point to be made, I think. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification, Commissioner Sargent. Yes, Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, it might also be a good idea for him to redo the drawings based on the discussion and get them back to us so that we're all clear on, I don't want him to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to fix all this stuff or change all this stuff and then come back again and we say, no, that's still doesn't meet the criteria that we're trying to establish.
All right.
But that I don't understand.
Well, I think he could bring a drawing back showing the changes that, like Commissioner Loftus is saying. If it's not back to the original drawing, it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Okay.
Try again with another proposal with some acceptable changes.
You mean you're saying get whatever change he makes approved before he
starts building it? Yeah, I mean, unless they're the original ones, specifically the gable.
That makes a lot of sense to me that we're simply denying what got built. The drawings are not, he's not asking for approval of the drawings. He's asking us to prove what he built. The drawings only represent that. So what we would need to see is either build it the way it was designed or come back to us with a proposed solution that we can accept. That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to add any verbiage to that motion for clarity's sake? Is that?
I think staff captured.
Okay.
Can listen to the video and capture that motion correctly.
Thank you. So, so we've discussed the motion and now we can have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus.
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid.
Aye.
Vice Chair Torrones.
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-1-0. And this action is not appealable. I believe that's correct. Moving on to agenda item 8D, 1095 Rollins Road. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, can you please now raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak when it is your turn? Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project?
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, Chair Say.
Yes.
We want to correct the last item. That action is appealable. So if you could rewind and read the appeal language.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was that it was without prejudice that it was appealable. So even if it's denied at all, it's appealable. Okay.
Yes, they
Got
could.
it. So
Still, if they wanted, they could appeal to the city council.
that makes sense to me. I had my notes incorrectly
All right.
noted. So an action by the planning, I'll go back to agenda item 8C to close that out after our vote of 6-0-1-0. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Okay, now we will move on to agenda item 8D again. And I believe the applicant has their hands raised and getting set up to speak. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for 1095 Rollins Road for a design review amendment to a previously approved project for a new 6-story, 150-unit apartment building. The site is zoned R4. This application came before you last January and was approved for a mitigated neg deck, general plan amendment, rezoning, conditional use permit, and density bonus, as well as a tentative and final map for the new 6-story, 150-unit building. A building permit has been applied for and is currently under review, but is not yet issued. However, a demolition permit was issued in February, and all structures on the site have been demolished at this time. The entitlements were originally granted to the Hanover Company. The property has now been sold, and the new developer is 1095 Rollins Road Limited Partnership. It's Prometheus Real Estate Group. And therefore, the new property owner is requesting with this application some refinements to the exterior of the building. The number of units, number of parking spaces, and on balance, the overall height and building envelope are going to remain the same. But staff, rather than do an FYI, staff felt like it was better just to bring these directly to you as an amendment. And that way, if there's any issues or things we want to talk about, we can do that right here. So I've summarized for you in the staff report, the just kind of an overview, but the plans that were provided to you are color coded, and that we have this evening will show the changes on the elevations, primarily on the front and rear elevations. So the front elevation, which we'll call the north or Rollins Road side, includes adding a living wall or a cable trellis systems that would have vines growing up. You'll see that here in this rendering with the green. It's notated with the green coloring. There would be vines that would grow up on a stainless steel cable system. In addition, an uncovered pergola is proposed on the 6th floor. That's shown in the pink, kind of the bright pink up at the top left of this photo. And along the northern property line that they share with the gas station, there's a proposed change to the fence. So it was going to be a wood fence with a green screen, and now there's going to be a solid fencing. And then the last portion of it closest to the street would be just a wood fence. In addition, there were 13 trees proposed along Rollins Road, and those were originally approved as London plane trees. And the applicant in the plans provided for you offers 3 different options that they're considering to change the trees. This is something that will work in conjunction with the Parks Department. Basically, Parks is fine with all of them. I think the first choice the applicant had is with the ginkgos. So I've added a condition of approval. Condition number 2 basically says, prior to us issuing a revision for these changes, they'll work with the Parks Department on that. Back to the changes. Rear elevation, which is what faces North Park Apartment. A spa has been added to the podium level on the 2nd floor. Another pergola on the 2nd floor podium. And there's been some changes to the materials from fiber cement lap siding to cement siding on floors 2 through 4. An additional living wall area, which would have upgrowing vines, is also proposed at the back. And then another pergola. So if we could go to another slide, I think it's the next sheet. Yeah, perfect. Okay, that shows the different pergolas at the back. And then finally, the side elevation we'll call the west side is also has an added pergola that would be on the 6th floor. So all the changes are color coded for you. There are no changes to the zoning compliance for the project, and staff has provided for you in your staff report revised design review findings based upon these changes. And the only noted changes to the conditions would be condition number 1 that just reflects these drawings dated March 22nd with the changes I just summarized. And then condition number 2 I had mentioned earlier related to just finalizing species change for the trees and the vines with our Parks Department. And it would be all pulled off of the pallets that are provided in the drawing. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very thorough staff report. Are there any questions for staff? Vice Chair Taronis.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if this is a question for staff or if it's for the applicant, but maybe you can help me, Catherine. What's the spa that's mentioned for the second floor?
Yeah.
What's the definition of the spa? Are we just talking about a hot tub or
Yes.
that's?
It is on, it's clearly shown, I think A 3.32. So it's towards the front of the drawings. I think it's easier to see. Okay. A3. Oh, you can kind of see it there in the middle, kind of in the gray area surrounded by the green.
So it's just that sunken area.
Yes.
So
yes.
Hot tub out on the deck, sort of.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
You can see it on the next page too. A 3.32 kind of shows it as well.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions for staff? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project? Applicant, if you're speaking, you may be muted, or no, you should.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair Say and Planning Commissioners. I'm Don Peterson. I head development at Prometheus, and I represent the owner and the applicant. It's good to be with you tonight. Also here with me are representatives from our project design team, our lead architect, BDE, and our landscape architect, 2 Ink Studio. They're here to answer any specific questions you may have. I don't have much to add to staff's presentation. I'll just say that, as mentioned, Prometheus has purchased the property from Hanover, the prior applicant. And as noted, the property was previously entitled by the prior applicant. So our intent and desire is not to make substantive revision to what was approved, but rather to propose a certain refinement that we believe will enhance the overall design. And that's the rationale behind the design review amendment. The changes being proposed this evening focus on certain elements, the added greenery and green wall to the exterior facade, the substitution of certain street trees and planting at the Rollins Road frontage, and the addition of the pergola trellis structures and the additional spa are all being proposed because we believe they improve the project. So with that, I'll conclude. And as mentioned, my design team members or I are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Loftus?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the maintenance of all this green wall? How do you maintain it? How's it watered? Is it potable water? Is it a gray water system? You know, how high does this stuff get? What happens if you have to tear it back? How do you get up there, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. I'll have Jonathan. Why don't you comment?
Sure. My name is Jonathan Bieber. I'm the landscape architect with 2 Ink Studio. The plants are supported on a stainless steel cable system, so it's separated from the building. There's about 6 inches of relief off of the facade of the building. The plants will be irrigated using a drip irrigation system similar to the remainder of the plants on the project. So that'll be on an automated system. It is potable water. And we have selected plants that meet the low water use requirements for the project. The questions about maintenance, are you specifically talking about the plants themselves or?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of these things look like they could be 20 or 30 feet high if they actually grow that high.
Right.
And, you know, I've got some star jasmine that's 10 feet off the ground and it's out of control. So, you know, to get it cut back, I've got to get up on a ladder. What happens if you've got to get up and cut back? You know, you're not going to use a lift, you're going to use a ladder. My concern is just, you know, a couple of things. How certain are you that it's going to work? And if it actually works, how certain are you that you can maintain it And, you know, the upshot is really one about what happens if, you know, in the future, you just sort of, you know, can't be bothered anymore because it's out of control. And either we end up with it out of control completely, or not working because it's not watered enough, or for some other reason. I guess one other question related to that is, where are these pictures? There's some pictures in on sheet L1.3 that shows some instances of this stuff growing, or some stuff growing, using the cable system. I understand the cable system. Where are these pictures taken? Are they in this region?
I can't answer that question. I don't know exactly where those photos were taken. I think they're probably global in scope. But growing, you know, vines on cables like this has been done on a lot of projects, and I think we're pretty confident in the ability to maintain these. I mean, they will get up 20, 30 feet on the facade, as you mentioned. That is true. I mean, we've tried to select plant material that is not entirely unruly, meaning that it's going to create problems, because obviously the owners don't want to create issues with the plant material. So I think we're pretty confident that that the system is going to work. We've tried to diversify the planting somewhat, because we all know that plants are pretty adaptable to their specific microclimates, and we want to, you know, create as much assurance that this will be highly successful as we can.
Yeah, a lot of my questions are driven by the fact that I've done a lot of work over the past several years down in Silicon Valley, and I see a lot of green walls that actually haven't worked. They haven't grown, and you know, so
right.
Tell me skeptical. I'm trying to get some comfort here.
Yeah, and this, just to be clear, this is different from a green wall per se, which maybe suggests a soil matrix that's on a wall surface. And those, in fact, are quite difficult to keep maintained. And in fact, if you don't, you know, you miss a few days of irrigation on something like that, they're pretty unforgiving. The vines are, you know, the plant material at the base of the building will all be irrigated. So if the vines are suddenly not irrigated, that suggests that the whole ground plane area would not be irrigated as well, which I think we're 100% confident that wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to jump in here and assuage some of your fears for maintenance and state that we do have a full system of exterior building maintenance provided for the window systems of controlled descent anchors and lift platforms. So the same way that we're going to provide maintenance for the windows that are going to be hard to reach from the ground, should provide the same level of access to maintain these vines should they grow to the full height shown here.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, kind of staying on that same thing. How long will it take for these vines to mature?
You know, they'll go in as 5-gallon containers, which means they'll be, you know, 4 feet tall at plant. And then we're still trying to finalize the exact species selection, and we've suggested some species that we're looking at, but we're going to see, you know, depends on the actual species chosen. We're looking at plants that might grow, you know, anywhere from 3 to 4 feet a year. So it'll be a few years before we get topped out to the top of those cables.
And how often are you planning to space the vertical wires? What's the grid system kind of look like? Because I'm seeing that, you know, what I have in front of me is this L 1.3. So there's the one building. Is it only going vertical? Because to tell you the truth, I like the crisscross down on the wall the best, but I don't think that's what you're doing.
No, we're also still working on that, and that may have been finalized as of today. I can't answer that question because I don't know, but I think there will be some horizontals because we want to make sure that as the plants are growing, they're twining plants, and so they'll need those horizontals to make sure they can get a secure foothold as they move vertically.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, would anybody from the public like to speak on this item?
Madam Chair, there are no emails and no chat.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Loftus?
Yeah, I generally like green stuff growing on the sides of buildings. This is really extensive, which I guess gives me pause. It's proposed and it's pervasive, and it makes me worry about the two things that I've asked questions about. Not taking care of it, it dies. Not taking care of it, it gets out of control. And it looks like I've proposed nothing this quite this extensive before. I've proposed green stuff on the sides of buildings to have the client say, no, I'm not spending all of the money that's going to be required to do this. Despite assurances, I guess what worries me is just how extensive it is. I thought the building was pretty good without it, and it could be good with it. I guess I'd feel a lot more comfortable if it were limited in scope. But then again, if it works and it's taken care of, in 20 years, it could look quite remarkable. So I'm torn here because I worry about us approving something that, then just doesn't get maintained properly.
All right, Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, the pergolas and the material changes and the other things that are proposed, I don't have any concerns with. The growing piece, the landscape piece, my favorite picture that I've seen is the one with the crisscross on a blank wall. Because I think that then starts to add some value to this. But the one above the building, and which has as much articulation as the building that the proposed building here, I don't know that it needs more complications. And I don't like the picture of the building above with just green stuff growing up. I don't think it adds value to the architecture. And so I'm concerned that it's not going to look that great. And so the examples I'm seeing are just not convincing me that this is a value add to the sides of this building. And as Commissioner Loftus said, this is quite an endeavor that's being proposed here across a very large amount of building versus just being in the back near one of the patio areas and just being an accent piece. So I think I would need to see a lot more on how to put this on the side of a building.
So I see the applicant has his hand up, and again, in all fairness, I'm going to open the public hearing just to let the applicant clarify something that may be pertaining to what we are discussing and not adding new items to the discussion. So is it Mr. Peterson? Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add, for those of you that don't know Prometheus, we're a family-owned company. We're based here locally. We go back 50 years. And the one thing I would add is we don't sell any of these properties. We keep these properties. And so we have every incentive, to maintain these properties over time. I would just say if you've got concerns, maybe you could, in your commentary, maybe with some specificity to the extent of the greenery, if there's a greater comfort level to sort of the extent of the greenery, that may help in terms of guiding that specific element. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Would anybody from the public like to speak since we have the public hearing open? And then I'll go back to commissioners.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question of the applicant before you close the public hearing on this topic?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, Vice Chair Torres.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Peterson, either for you or for your landscape architect. Honestly, I would have been much more comfortable if I had heard, yes, we've done 7 of these installations over the course of the last 12 years and every one of them is thriving and we can bring you photos. Is that the case? Do you have it? I mean, I know I've seen pictures of this. I know I've seen installations like this, but either you or your landscape architect, specific history and a precedence with this type of installation?
Mr. Peterson, you're still here. Okay. If you'd like to speak on that.
It's been, we're relying on our landscape architect and our team. So we're currently proposing this on several of the buildings that we're doing.
Okay.
But I can't point to anything that has this extensive greenery on the exterior.
Jonathan, you have your hand up. It looks like, did you have?
I think he just got added to the panelists.
Yeah.
So Jonathan, would you like to comment? Jonathan Beaver? Jonathan, did you want to speak? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it did not add me right away. We can show some other examples. In fairness, we have not done anything this extensive before. This is certainly it's a bold move, but we have used this cable system in the past with vines, and we've done a number of projects where we've done fairly large vine coverings. There's also a really good precedent project in Portland, where we're based, which is at the courthouse that has extensive vines growing up the side that we could share with you as well, as kind of a similar strategy of utilizing a variety of species to achieve that effect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Commissioner Schmidt, did you want to speak during the public? No? Okay, Commissioner Loftus, also for the public or later?
Yeah, I do want to ask a follow-up question. It occurred to me, I should have asked this before. What we're seeing here is a growth that's proposed, right? I mean, it is an instance of growth at some point in the future. And so this is unlike many of the architectural things we see. This is suggesting that, well, that wall could be fully grown up, 50 feet high, and this could be stepped. Is it possible, I guess what I'm asking, is it possible that we're going to see, is it 50 feet high of wall surrounding that courtyard on A3.33? Or is the stepping a part of the design, or is it, what's being proposed here exactly?
Yeah, stepping is proposed as part of the design.
Okay.
So it does go up various heights and is sort of articulated on the facade that way.
So this is not really an artist's representation of what it might grow up to look like. It is step, 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 step. And then you've got a wall that's 50 feet high, that's all green, that it steps up to. Okay, that helps me understand what's going on. Thanks.
Okay, if there aren't any other comments, I'm going to close the public hearing again. And Commissioner Schmidt, you have your hand raised.
Yeah. Did I miss that we have a rendering of this building with the material on it? Because I saw just the diagrams that showed color coding where they would be, but not any kind of rendering of what we really think this is going to look like. That would be huge for me, because the one building that I'm, like I said, the one that I'm seeing in the plan isn't doing it for me. And it doesn't necessarily show against the project that we have here, which I actually think has a very fine elevation as it is. So I think I would need a little bit more visualization there. And I agree with the other commissioners on some examples of where it's being successful. Because going up and down the freeway, the walls that we build to enclose our freeways are meant to have plants on them too, but yet we can't seem to keep those growing either. So again, I need more on that, but the rest of it I was fine with, and I could see that going forward. Thank you.
Vice Chair Toronis.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Schmidt. I was just going to say that I have no issues with the pergolas. I think they will add some nice scale to those outdoor areas. No issue with the spa. I think it's a nice added feature. I think that, it's a great project. I still believe strongly in it. I'd like to see this move forward. I think that we could simply ask that that some additional information and perhaps some better, more detailed renderings come back before us, maybe as an FYI in regards to the vines. And I'm going to make that as a motion. Motion to approve accept the pergolas and the spa, but and the change in the materials on that back facade, but otherwise ask that some more detailed information on the vines come back to us. And that can be come back as an FYI, and we can pull it forward if necessary.
Vice Chair Taranis, sorry to interrupt. Would that motion also include the changes to the wall along the north side property line?
Yeah, yes, I have no issue with that.
Thank you.
And actually, if I could amend that motion, sorry, before we get a second, rather than an FYI, I think it should just come back as an amendment for action again so that we can discuss it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion by Vice Chair Toronis, seconded by Commissioner Loftus. Is there any discussion on this motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus.
Commissioner Loftus, you're muted.
Commissioner Loftus.
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Vice Chair Toronis.
Aye.
And Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0-0. And it's coming back again on action, correct? Okay.
The motion was, excuse me, Madam Chair, the motion was to approve, correct? And if there are changes to the vines, those would come back as an amendment. So you would want to read the appeal procedures. Thank you.
So I would what? I'm sorry.
You would want to read the appeal procedures.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So an action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes notice and costs. Congratulations. Moving on to design review items, number 9. Our first item is 9A 2411 Easton Drive. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, can you please raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak when it is your turn? Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? I do have Commissioner Toronis recusing from this item. All right, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review for a first and second story addition to an existing single family dwelling at 2411 Easton Drive, zoned R1. The subject property consists of 2 legal lots, but functions as one parcel, since the existing single family dwelling sits across a property line that's located in the middle of the lot that runs the length of the lot. The applicant proposes a first floor addition, converting existing crawl space into living area and converting a portion of the existing basement into a mudroom and storage area for the main dwelling. The applicant is also proposing to rebuild the existing rear deck, add 324 square feet to the existing second floor, and also convert the existing two-car garage and part of the basement to a new attached accessory dwelling unit. The total proposed floor area is increasing from 4,142 square feet to 4,693 square feet, or 7,622 square feet is the maximum allowed for this lot. Now, with this application, the number of bedrooms would be actually decreasing from 6 to 5. Conversion of an existing garage into an ADU does not require that the covered parking for the main dwelling be replaced, nor that parking be provided for the ADU. However, one uncovered space for the main dwelling is still required, and that one uncovered space would be provided in the driveway. All other zoning code requirements have been met. This concludes my staff report. If you have any questions for staff, I'd be happy to take those now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? All right, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project? If the applicant is speaking, you may be muted.
Madam Chair, I did not see a hand raised, and I don't see a panelist added either. So I don't know if the applicant is here.
Right.
If the applicant is not here, we can still take public comment, and you can still review the project and provide direction that'll be recorded in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. I do see the architect here, but maybe he stepped away momentarily. All right, so why don't we see if anybody from, well, we don't have anybody to ask any questions, but do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak on this item? And if you are the applicant and you're, oh, okay, there you are. So, Jerry, are you able to speak? Are you in limbo state?
Yeah, I'm not. I saw Jerry Deal's hand raised.
Okay, if I got somebody there.
Yes,
there we go.
I can hear you now.
Hey, fantastic. I don't know if you can see me or not.
We just see
but
your
I can
name.
see, but I can see you. Anyway.
We cannot hear you. I think you're muted. Jerry, I think you're muted.
Unmute. Okay, did that work?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was in on the design of this project about a year ago, and in November, of course, I retired. So I'm up in Oregon. I come back to the Bay Area once in a while, but they're great people. I think the design works well with the existing property that's there. And I know they're willing to put the money into it to make it a much better project. So I myself would like to see it approved. I thought that Hector, who's now handling that project, would have been there this evening, but maybe something happened. Sometimes you don't quite get through on Zoom and things happen. So.
All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I said I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, hi, Jerry. So my question is, overall, I think the design's very well done, but my question is about the windows, especially on the front. It shows that those existing windows are going to remain. Is that correct on the, let's see, I guess it's on the left side elevation and on the front elevation. The reason I'm asking is because they're a vinyl window with a grid between the glass. And has there been consideration of replacing those? And if so, would you guys consider grids on all the windows?
Jerry, are you muted? Jerry, I believe you're muted again.
Okay, am I back on again?
Yes.
Okay. We're pretty far away. That's the reason it gets muted. Let's see, as far as those windows, my hope is that they would replace them with new windows to match the existing windows they're going to go in. With regard to, are they going to replace every window in the entire house? That's a decision that has not been made. That's quite expensive. And the truth is that some of that area is going to maybe potentially in the future be remodeled again. We don't know yet. Of course, we'd come before the Planning Commission for a review on that. But so I can't say yes or no on that. I'd have to talk to the owners.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Hey, Mike.
Actually, I was almost the same question, but I was maybe less objectionable to the existing windows with the grid in between, but I do miss the grid on the new windows that are being proposed. The additional trim work and things that were added to the elevations work great. It's just a little bit of loss of character with the windows without the buttons. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
All right. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand or send a text or chat. If we have any emails.
Madam Chair, there are no emails and no chats.
Okay. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Loftus.
Yeah, for me, this feels like a very one-sided conversation. I don't get the sense that that Mr. Deal is actually representing the client here based on the way that he answered the questions, that he's retired and he would hope that the clients would do this or the clients would do that. So I'm not sure what, this feels like we ought to have somebody representing the client answering questions definitively in order to do what we got to do. I don't know what I would say about this unless we just say no vinyl windows, no grids between, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel wholly unprepared to make any decision based on this or to give any feedback. That's just me.
Commissioner Camarado.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is this is one of my favorite houses in the Easton Addition, and I thank the applicant for all the work to kind of maintain the feeling of this home. I agree with Commissioner Loftus, though. I'd love to see if we could get the architect or designer that is actually working with the applicant to come back and maybe have some comments about these windows. But I think that if we could get some clarification about the windows. I do like the other changes, but the windows are of concern.
All right, so once again, I see that the applicant has raised their hand after we've closed the public hearing. So I'm going to reopen the public hearing to allow them to address these comments and questions. And so P, if you're there, you may speak.
Hi. Hi, this is Lily Law and Philip Law. We're the owners of the property. We actually have been working quite extensively with Jerry, despite the fact that he's been in Oregon. We haven't talked most recently just because we've been waiting for the design review to proceed. We have been part of this meeting. As to the question as to whether or not we will be replacing the windows, most likely yes. As Jerry said, we haven't gone through the final details as to which window, but we're happy to work with the city to figure that out.
Okay, are there any questions, comments in response? And then if, once again, since we're open to the public, if there's any other comments, chats, before I close the public hearing again.
There are none, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll say before we close the public hearing that I don't know if that answer helped per se. It's I think considering changing windows is neither a yes or a no, and so I'm not sure if that's helping Commissioner Loftus with his comment. I don't know, Lily, if you can be more definitive or. Are they gone from the panelists now?
Yes, they're removed from panelists, so you should continue your discussion just based on the response they provided.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing again, and Commissioner Camerado.
Yeah, I'd say I could see making a motion to have the for this to come back on regular action item with clarification on which windows and what kind of windows the applicant is actually going to propose.
And Commissioner Schmidt, did you want to second that, or did you?
I agree. It's a lovely home. I like what they're adding as far as the detail. It's just really clarity on the windows. So I could see us allowing this to go forward and dealing with the windows as an action item. So
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Camerado, seconded by Commissioner Schmidt. Is there any discussion on the motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus?
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Aye.
Mayor Say?
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-1-0. We move on now to item 9B, 728 Lexington Way. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak. Were all commissioners able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? All right, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review, special permit, and front setback variances for a new two-story single-family house with an attached garage at 728 Lexington Way, zoned R1. The applicant is proposing to demolish the majority of the existing house and attached garage and then build a new two-story single-family dwelling with attached garage. The total proposed floor area would be 2,964 square feet, where 2,700 square feet is the maximum allowed. Because the applicant is proposing to demolish more than 50% of the existing exterior first floor walls of the house, the proposal then is considered substantial construction under the zoning code and therefore is considered new construction. The applicant is requesting a special permit for the proposed attached garage. This garage would provide one covered parking space and one uncovered space would be provided in the driveway. And this is for a 3-bedroom house. So it does meet the code requirements for the parking spaces. The applicant is requesting a front setback, however, for the attached garage where it has a setback of 18 feet 3 inches and the code requires a minimum of a 25-foot setback for an attached garage. In addition, that front setback variance is also for the second floor where it would have an 18-foot setback and a minimum of a 20-foot setback is required for the second floor. The proposed house and the attached garage comply with the average front setback, which is 15 feet 3 inches. For your reference this evening, staff has provided the design review criteria in your staff report, as well as the required findings to be considered for the special permit request, as well as the required findings for a variance request. Staff would note that there are 2 letters of support in the staff report that are attached. And there was 1 letter of support received from the next door neighbor, and it came in this afternoon as a received after. So I believe you all have a copy of that. So I'm not going to read that into record, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Vice Chair Taronis.
Sorry, yeah, just Catherine, I just wanted to point out, it looks like there's a typo in the staff report. It's the square footage, it looks like from the chart is actually 2,694, not 2,964, because the max allowed is 2,700.
You are correct. It looks like we transposed those numbers.
It
So
looks like that was all it is. Yeah.
yeah, thank
Not
you.
pointing out mistakes. I just want to make, for the record, just make sure that's clear. They're below.
Yeah, we would have been granting a floor area ratio variance there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. No other questions. I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project?
Yeah, good evening. I'm Tristan Warren, and I'm the architect and applicant for the project at 728 Lexington Way. And first, let me thank Michelle Markowitz and the rest of the planning staff for their assistance and the guidance they provided throughout the process. When I first met my clients, Tuan and Shelby Sinha, we discussed a straightforward project with a few simple goals. And if it's possible, I'd love to bring up sheet A 2.3 at this point, just so that I can kind of discuss the project, if that's, thank you. Um, 2.3, if you can get there.
Through the chair, Madam Chair, we don't post floor plans of residential projects on our website. So we only have the site plan and elevations.
Okay, then I'll roll through with that. And thank you, planning manager. Let me just roll back a little bit. And when I first met with Tuan and Shelby, they had a number of really straightforward goals for me. They wanted to basically expand the house to expand with their family. And this considered remodeling the existing living room, dining room, and kitchen area to be more open to each other and have a better relationship to the backyard. There's some space behind the garage. It's kind of an odd double-loaded garage with the back space that's actually somewhat habitable space. They wanted to make better use of that space behind the garage. On the upstairs, they wanted to update the existing bedrooms and bathroom, and they wanted to add a 3rd bedroom and bathroom to the house, which was really the instigation for the project. Tuan and Shelby wanted to work within the existing footprint of the home for these alterations. So on sheet G.5 here that we're looking at, this is the 3D views of the house. And just wanted to just briefly run through the design because I understand and know from looking at the Berlin Gables neighborhood that contemporary designs aren't common, at least at this point in Berlin Gables. So when I talked with Tuan and Shelby, they were interested in pursuing a contemporary style of design that's rooted in Bay Area tradition and currently exemplified by the work of firms such as Swapmeyer and Feldman Architecture, among others. The form of this current style are inspired by the works of mid-century architects who practiced in California, such as Richard Nitra, R.M. Schindler, Donald Olson, and William Worcester. So there's a history for this style, even if it's not particularly abundant in Burlingame or in Berlin Gables neighborhood. The current style itself consists of rectilinear forms defined by the use of materials such as stucco, glass, dark anodized aluminum or other dark material, and clear finished cedar. The existing context on the block of Lexington Way and in the larger context of Berlin Gables neighborhood is predominantly post-war development and constitutes or borrows from a number of different architectural styles, but there's no predominant architectural style in the neighborhood. I don't know if we can pull up sheet G 0.4 or if that's not available. G 0.4 basically was a categorization of the neighborhood that we did as part of our due diligence for the project. And it was categorizing such new architectural styles as modern farmhouse and more contemporary designs such as those at 628 and 624 Trenton Way. Unfortunately, I can't really refer to the images on the page because we don't have them up. But so there's a slow turnover of this kind of work or other new kinds of styles in the Burlingame Gables neighborhood. On sheet A 3.1, which is, I've seen that flash up, that's our exterior elevations. I just want to say that we believe that a thoughtfully articulated modern design that conforms to the goals articulated in the design guidebook with respect to massing, scale, and street wall pattern would be a positive addition to the built context of this neighborhood. And then on sheet A 0.3, I just want to point out one other feature. And this comes back to that point about staying within the general size and bulk of the home itself. If it's not there, it's all right. I can work without it. The existing design or the proposed design and the existing building mass were designed to be similar in scale, even though we're adding an addition. And we achieved this by lowering the floor of the living room, dining room, and kitchen by about 3 feet. It was a traditional split level house. So we lowered that area, and that allowed us to put another floor on top that's slightly higher than the existing upper floor, but still reduces the mass of what a new second story would have been over that area. And then let me just briefly, I know that we're short on time, and I don't believe I can bring up the sheet G0, I just want to talk briefly about the variance application. As I mentioned in the introduction, it's important to my clients that the addition alteration change the relationship of their home to the neighborhood as little as possible. For this reason, the design team is seeking a variance to maintain the garage and second floor above its current, and the second floor above in its current location, rather than moving the portion of the facade back approximately 7 feet as required by the zoning regulations for new construction. And let me just briefly say that, the new construction designation, as we've been noted by staff, is required when more than 50% of the exterior walls are altered. And honestly, we're not much over 50%. And this 50% is resulting from substantially the work required to lower the kitchen, dining room, and living room floors, which affected the walls there. And so that was a little bit more than half the footprint when all was said and done. Exterior work on the portion of the building for which we were requesting the variance consists of window alterations, new exterior finishes to maintain a consistent design style for the entire building. Currently, the garage portion of the building is consistent with the pattern of the street wall on the block. In surveying this block, as well as the greater Burlingame Gables neighborhood, there are numerous examples of houses with similar non-conforming relationships to the street. So I don't think granting the variance would create a special privilege, but instead maintain the consistency desired in the design guidebook for this block and greater neighborhood. Alternately, conforming with the zoning ordinance would require that almost half the subject building, and that's the half with the garage and the 2 bedrooms above it, be moved back from the street wall, causing the structure to become less consistent with the overall street plane and creating a condition for the home that is unique on the block. And then I just want to mention that my clients and I have worked with both of the adjacent neighbors to modify window locations from the originally proposed design to ensure privacy for all. And I'm going to thank you for your time and your patience. And I believe my client, Shelby Sinha, may have a few words to say about the importance of the project to her family. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelby, would you like to speak?
If that's okay, I just want to be mindful of time. I can make it quick.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you, Tristan, as well as our planner, Michelle, and the planning department for your assistance. Our family has loved living in our neighborhood for the past 7 years and look forward to even welcoming my parents who are relocating to Burlingame to enjoy Burlingame life with us. I just wanted to mention that Tuan and I are both active members of the community. We've held previous Washington PTA and BCE positions, founded Math Mondays and Discovery Day at Washington, for which Tuan received an award, and we host annual fundraising events. Our 10-year-old daughter and 8-year-old son are rapidly growing up, and our 2-bedroom home is really no longer meeting our needs. Soon our kids will really appreciate their own space. Just wanted to mention that we, with Tristan, are committed to ensuring that we end up with a great project that adds value to the streetscape as well as the surrounding homes. And we have been and will continue to minimize the impact on our neighbors, our closest 3 of which have submitted letters of support. Really appreciate your time in our much needed remodel.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Toronis?
Thank you. Just one word of caution to you, Shelby. Be careful with that volunteerism stuff. It can become addictive. A question, Tristan, on the architecture. I'm admiring the, you know, the contemporary look and the pretty thorough study and the residential feel and scale. And I like your comments, you know, in terms of this being sort of a study in how the forms can be defined by the use of the materials. And it's causing me to zero in a little bit on that left elevation. So my question is, you know, it's a little plain, and I get it, you know, but what I'm wondering is it possible you've got the nice recess and the application of the wood siding at the 2nd floor bedroom number 1, exterior left side wall? Would it be possible to do something similar maybe at the downstairs bathroom towards the back as sort of an offset on that elevation? You know, maybe even introduce, you know, an eyebrow awning over that little window. I realize it's just a bathroom, but I think that would help with that facade, if that's possible.
Yeah, Vice Chair Toronis, I mean, this is one of those things where it becomes a compositional exercise, right? We've sort of defined the materials and we've set things up. And I think my team and I went back and forth on this elevation quite a bit, you know, and whether to leave it plain and what to do with it. We'd certainly be happy to study a little bit of a contrapost in that area to maybe just enliven it up a little bit. You know, obviously the fenestration there is what it is, after going back and forth with the abutting neighbor to make sure that, you know, there were no direct views and that everybody was getting light and air. But, you know, adding that accent material wouldn't be, I don't think, an issue as long as we were able to handle it properly.
I think it would help. I mean, just with that elevation, because the others are so well composed, at least in my mind. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes, I appreciate all the effort and thought being put into the design. Can you help me a little bit with the various eyebrows and canopies? What is that assembly intending to be made out of, and maybe some dimensions for me? Because it seems pretty light and pretty thin. You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, that was the intent, Commissioner Schmidt. There's and you know, I'm going to get chuckled at for this. There's a project by my former firm, which is actually Feldman Architecture, that they did down in Palo Alto, where they used a thin metal plate and as the eyebrow. And you know, from a style like this, my intent for those eyebrows, with the exception of the one over the front door, was to keep them as thin as possible. So what I would think is we would have an upturned edge of maybe a ½ an inch on the front side, and then, you know, that we'd work with drainage to set something up for drainage on this. I've done this before in the past in other ways, and then we'd have an upturned leg, so it would be a large angle. And that large angle would then have flashing above it, so it would be bolted into the sides so that we could achieve a very thin profile projecting from the building. At the entry, I think we'd probably use a steel frame and have a little bit more depth so that we could continue that same ceiling plane into the building back to the face of where the window at the stairs starts. I'd expect that, given you know, the biggest challenge we actually do have, if we look at the 3D view on sheet G05, I think there's a little indication on the view looking northeast in the upper corner. We'd have a thin column at the outside to pick that up, And then the rest of it, the span is about 5 feet. I think if we couldn't do it with lumber, we could do it with a very light steel profile. So that's the intent there. Obviously, we're still at the design review phase. So not a ton of thought has gone into it, but I like to have proof of concept before I throw something out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand, send a chat. Do we have any emails?
Madam Chair, there are no emails and no chats submitted.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Vice Chair Toronis?
Thank you. I think it's a nice project. I like like I said, the sort of the study and how the materials can help define the form of the contemporary style. Because has good scale. They've lowered the house the way the architect has described. The massing is very similar to the existing. So therefore, I think even though it may not be representative architecture or may not be wholly represented in the neighborhood, there are some precedences, and I think that it could fit in nicely. I also think that there's I could find support and make the findings for the variance. I agree with the arguments that have been made in terms of the neighborhood context, in terms of zoning that has been developed over the years subsequent to the original construction. I also think that there's an additional exceptional and extraordinary circumstance, and that is the fact that this lot is only 100 feet deep. We've had discussions before about requirements, but when we look at things like FAR and lot coverage, those things scale with the lot. But a setback for the garage of a hard and fast set 25 feet does not scale with the lot. And so on a small lot like this, it's sort of an exceptional circumstance and requirement to say the house has to get shoved back that additional 7 feet. So I think that could be applied here. So I can make the findings. I think it's a nice project, but again, I think that I'd like to see some additional study on that left elevation. That's just one opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Camerado?
Yeah, so I thank the applicant for a nice design, and I used to live on Lexington. It's my favorite street in the whole world. I love that little area. So I know how tight and how small those lots can be. So I appreciate the drawings, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness. And I agree with Commissioner Toronis. I think that this has a great start to the project. I could see approving it. I'd like to see a little bit more detail on that left elevation as well. But other than that, I could see moving this project on.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I appreciate the scale and the massing and everything, and I do know that neighborhood well too. And I think that from that standpoint, it fits in really well. I'm struggling a little bit with the context piece, but I also understand, it's got to start somewhere, and we have to give some opportunities here and some latitude on that. I would like to see, in this next version of it, a little bit more study with the landscape in front. I think that those front perspectives could be, renderings could be maybe a little bit more detailed. I know you did them clear so that you could see the elevation, but I think that the landscaping in this front area could be quite important to the success of this project. And so I'd like to see a little bit more to that, along with, we typically are looking for window details and the awning details. So a little bit more information on how those are going to go together would be helpful the next time around. Thanks.
Commissioner Loftus?
Yeah, it's a very handsome design. I am struggling a lot with the context though. And I always hate to find myself on the wrong side of good modern design, but it takes a lot of words to explain how this fits into the neighborhood. And the problem for me is that, you know, again, like a project that we saw not too long ago, this is in one of those neighborhoods where you've got buildings chock-a-block beside each other. There's not a lot of room between the buildings. And, you know, the buildings, all the houses are relative to one another, are having a conversation. And for me, in that context, a building like this is thumbing its nose at those conversations in a way. I like the house a lot. I don't believe that it will be hard for me in the future to understand how we say no to anyone who can come in with the right scale, the proper scale, materials that are similar, put together all the words that are necessary to describe how it fits in conceptually. I'll find it almost impossible to say no if I say yes to this. And I don't think that that's really what ought to happen in Burlingame. The reasons that we accept these kinds of projects in the hills is because the lots are much larger and the topography is different and the buildings they're not frontally all facing onto the street like they are having a conversation, you know, tree-lined street, porch line, you know, houses similar to each other having a conversation, each with a front porch. And I just don't buy that this fits into the context. And so if we say yes to this, I don't see how we say no if people come in with something that is carefully crafted like this one is and conceptually fits in, but our community will walk down the street and say, what happened here? How does this show up here? It doesn't fit. And just because I trained as an architect and have been doing this for 37 years now, I can convince myself it fits. And I've made arguments in my work to explain to people why something fits. So I understand that piece of it very well. I don't buy that this fits the neighborhood. And I think it takes more than that. It's not even making a nod at the neighbors other than the scale, which is good, and the materials, which are good. And then there's a lot of explanation about the size of the windows. But then, you know, this architecture has got to be more than just conceptual. I don't think a community is built on built on conceptual design. It's built on design that's part of a broader conversation. So I'm having real problems with the context here. As much as I like the house, I think it's a very, very nicely done modern house. And I love mid-century. However, this is not the mid-century anymore. And I love Neutra, but most of his houses were not in very dense neighborhoods. So I got a problem, but that's just me.
Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, you know, I because of the size of my truck, I didn't drive down the block. I parked on Bloomfield and walked all the way down. And I think that I'm feeling the same as Commissioner Loftus. You know, I've worked on that street before. It's a nice tree-lined street. It has a real kind of Burlingame small town feel. And that was the sense I got when I was walking the block, is that I like the house generally, except for that left side, especially because of the neighbor on that left side also has a big, tall, two-story sheer wall, but I think that's going to be addressed. But I am having a hard time with this fitting in. And I won't go on because I think Commissioner Loftus did a great job of explaining it. But contextually, I just don't know. I mean, I know that we've got some modern homes around town, but with the size of the lots and how close these are together, I don't think that this one really fits in with the rest of them.
Any other comments, motions? Commissioner Sargent?
Yeah, I had have to agree with Commissioner Loftus, and I really don't have anything to add because I think he was pretty eloquent on why his opinion on why it doesn't fit, and I agree. And I guess it seems like we're struggling on a motion. I mean, I suppose that, you know, we kind of have two choices here. We could refer it to design review, which doesn't seem necessary, or bring it back on regular action and have the architect address the comments that have been made. So I guess I'd make that motion to bring it back on regular action.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Vice Chair Taronis. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, you know, I think that it might be helpful if the perspectives included the neighboring homes, so we got a little bit more of that neighborhood context. That may make it a little bit more palatable or a little bit less palatable. I don't know, but I would suggest that to the applicant when they come back.
Commissioner Schmid?
I agree with Commissioner Gall that more context on either side would actually help either the design team come to some conclusions or help us come to some conclusions, one or the other. But I don't know that because we're bringing this back on action, that that's actually saying that we're ready to go forward. So I think that there's definitely some work to be done to come to that action meeting.
Yeah, I think we've seen some projects in our city and in some denser neighborhoods where a more modern approach has been taken, and it's been a matter of working roof profiles in with the massing and the design so that the roof profile somehow incorporates better with the neighborhood, but can still have a more modern and contemporary statement. So maybe that can provide the designer architect with a little direction in contextually fitting into the neighborhood more. I think we agree the materials are nice and some of the elements are nice. I can see the asymmetrical placement of windows is not predominant in the neighborhood, but it does exist. And the attached garage massing certainly is found throughout that neighborhood. So we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Vice Chair Taronis. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Shall we have a roll call vote then?
Okay. Commissioner Camerata?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus?
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid?
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Aye.
And Chair Say?
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0-0. We now move on to item 9C, 1820 Castaneda Drive. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak when it is your turn. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? All right, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, and before I summarize the staff report, I did want to point out that there were several written correspondence received after the staff report was prepared. They include 2 emails from Ryan Choi dated April 25th and April 26th, and also an email from Anil Lal dated April 26th, and you should have received a copy of those already. So this is an application for design review and hillside area construction permit for a first and second story addition to an existing single family dwelling at 1820 Castaneda Drive, zoned R1. The applicant proposes a first floor addition and also to build a new second story totaling 1,483 square feet. The total proposed floor area would increase from 2,426 square feet to 3,383 square feet, which is also the maximum allowed. The project does include converting living area at the front of the house to an attached ADU, which is 498 square feet in area. Staff has determined that the ADU complies with the ADU ordinance. So the applications requested before you this evening are design review and hillside area construction permit. That concludes my staff report. If you have any questions for staff, I can take those now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, with that, we will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project?
Oh, good evening, commissioners. My name is John Lum. I'm the architect of the project, and my clients who are online, I don't think that they're a little shy. They're not really wanting to speak to you, but they're hopeful that you will support their project. Ryan Choi and Jisoo moved to Burlingame in 2016, and subsequently they have 3 daughters now. And the house that currently exists, it has only 2 bedrooms. It does state in the record that there's a 3rd bedroom, but that's actually a family room. So when they approached us, pretty much like 3 years ago, oh, there they are. They were wanting to do a fairly modest addition, and then they said, well, we're not sure if we can afford this. We want to look around. They looked around in numerous other locations, and they kept on coming back to Burlingame and their house. And so they really committed to wanting to stay here and have a forever house. So the goal with the 3 girls now was to add a floor that they could have 4 bedrooms on top. And then also they have an extended family, and they're hoping to convert the existing master bedroom into a JDU. So the house is fairly modest. It's in a ranch style neighborhood, several mostly consistent, all built in the 1950s, 60s. And so we took our inspiration, since this is an addition, we wanted to keep a majority of the existing footprint of the 1st floor and added the 2nd floor in the back of the house so that we would minimize the mass. The house design is inspired by a slightly higher level, I guess one would say, of the mid-century. So we are basing the house design around more like an Eichler inspired house design, but also keeping within the simplicity of the neighborhood. So we've incorporated stucco and wood. We also looked at the front where that's the only sunny part of the house. And so we created an entry courtyard that would allow them to open up their house, because that is facing southwest, whereas the view, of course, is towards the north side. So here's the front of the house. As you can see, we kept the simple lines, we kept the overhangs that are prevalent throughout the neighborhood, but we removed the hip roof and the simplified the whole design. Jisoo and Ryan have done an extensive outreach to the neighborhood. Of the 3 2-story houses that are on the block, all of those neighbors are in support, and they have collected 20 signatures from adjacent neighbors in support of the project. I know that there has been a comment from a downslope neighbor, but we're a little puzzled by that comment because you can't really see that person's house because of their extensive landscaping on the hillside there. The ADU definitely is a necessity for them because their parents are starting to age, and they're hoping that they would like to accommodate the multi-generations in this one house for themselves. I think that's pretty much it for what I wanted to speak to you about. Thank you.
Thank you. And did the homeowner want to speak, or just present to answer any questions?
Thank you so much for your time. I'm Ryan, this is Jisoo. We're here mostly to answer any questions that you may have, and we just want to give a special shout out to Amelia, who has been so great about the whole process, holding our hand through it, advising, And, we've had a great experience, and, we look forward to hopefully moving forward with this project and staying a part of this community as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or the homeowner? Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to say to the homeowners, thank you very much for that wonderful letter of explanation on the project. It was really nice to see, and I really appreciate your commitment to the neighborhood and to the community and sticking with the project. My question is is to the architect. And just in terms of context, this to me, in response to what Commissioner Loftus was talking about on the prior application, this to me is an example of why I can't simply say yes to any and all modern architecture or mid-century modern or contemporary, even if it just has good scale. Because my question is whether or not, John, you studied any other material applications or any uses of material to help support the forms of the contemporary look. You mentioned stucco and wood, but the only applications of wood that I see are a small bit on the rear elevation in the area underneath sort of the bar and one panel of some wood siding next to the patio doors. But otherwise, the rest of it is pretty much just a stucco box.
Mhm. Yes, and well, we worked, really a majority of the houses are just basically stucco. So we're following basically the cues from the adjacent neighborhood. So, if their goal is to add more wood, we could do that. Certainly we are respecting kind of the symmetry of the house, and then also with the addition and with the middle section there. So that could be expressed more in wood if you thought that was something that would be desirable.
Well, I guess what I'm expressing as it's sort of what I would desire is just, in terms of the context of the existing neighborhood, while there may be other stucco houses, they have different forms that are sort of iconic and fit into the context of that, the neighborhood that was built in the Mills Estates, over the years. When you then introduce the contemporary style, I think it then has an obligation to go further, or at least express itself with something more than just a flat box with flat roofs. Granted, it's a single slope at 1 and 12, but otherwise it's just a box. It's just a stucco box that's hard to approve for me from a design standpoint. And I'd like to think that can be some material study that would then help support the forms, break down the masses, and give better scale to what's proposed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that was the extent of my questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Loftus.
Can you talk a little bit about the glass screened entry courtyard? What's the purpose of the courtyard? Why not just why is the courtyard there, I guess?
Well, currently the front yard is never used, as most houses in the neighborhood never use their yards. And so because this is the south facing part of the house, the goal here was to give them an outdoor room that they could enjoy and also be secure with all their young children. And so it's also based on a precedent. Jisoo's mother from Korea grew up in a house that has like a courtyard like this. So the thought is to have a protected garden for them to enjoy.
Okay.
And there's actually about 4 or 5 examples in the neighborhood where people have enclosed their next to their garages, the front yards, so that they have private spaces.
Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, I just had a question on the proposed exterior materials. The windows, it says aluminum frame. Do you have a manufacturer selected, or maybe a cut sheet on that window, or could you provide something the next time around? My only concern is that, when you say an aluminum window, I have replaced thousands of windows in my career, and when I hear aluminum window, I think of something that's just real thin and narrow, and you know?
No.
So, I mean, you know, if it's a Fleetwood or something like that, that's fine. But if you could just give a little bit more detail on those windows and doors, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, certainly.
All right. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? I see some hands raised. Sean Liu, would you like to speak? Please unmute yourself. Can somebody let Sean Liu in? Okay. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Oh, hi. This is Jen Zhang and Sean. We are next door neighbor. And first of all, I want our neighbors to know just soon, and we really like you. Nothing personal here, okay? What we're speaking to it is purely for, you know, as a neighbor that we think that's something that we should speak up. And then so the house design is very, very different than the community look. I know in Burlingame, and then we really would like to preserve the community look. That's kind of one thing that I'm kind of really, just like a vice chair said that, you know, we totally are changing the community look. I'm a little concerned about that. The other thing is really for those of you who know this neighborhood, or, you know, and we're very, very close, if you know that. It really doesn't look like, you know, the houses, big houses elsewhere with big lot. Here, the lot is like 6,000 square feet, and it's very close. So for me, that I am, and my husband and family, actually, we really strongly concerned about the what you call it, kind of like the patio, I guess, design. So very close to our end. And so I think the architect was saying that you don't understand the comment. And I want to tell you that privacy is why that we moved to Burlingame, right? And then so I moved from San Francisco. And the reason why that we really want to have a backyard, a private backyard, kind of like when we come, I work in a hospital, by the way. So when I come back from a stressful day, that I really would like to sit in the backyard, that to have a privacy, not to here, I know that you have 3 kids. I love them, by the way. But then also too, the having that open area and looking to our end, or just like, I mean, I want you to be happy. I want you to have fun up there, but really closer to this end. And then it is very concerning to us. So that's why I hope that you can respect our concern. If you move it to the middle or to you know, I mean, I'm sure that your other side of the neighbor doesn't want that to be on their side either, right? That would be something that I would think it's fair to ask. So that part, I'm like really, really, really concerned. So I really hope that all the commissioners will think about that. Yeah, so.
Okay, I think your time is up. I'm sorry. I think we've heard your comment, and I know we have a number of hands up, and we still have a number of items ahead on our agenda this evening. So when you're speaking, we would really appreciate it if you can be concise and get straight to your point. So next we have Eric.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Now we don't. Eric, are you trying to speak? You might be muted.
Can you hear?
Yes. Go ahead, please. Eric, would you like to speak, or we're going to move on and we can come back to you later?
Do I need to hold this bar
Do you have
down?
to hold the button down when you're talking?
No, I think you could just let go of the button. We can hear you speaking. No? You have to hold your button? I'm not quite sure what.
We got the unmute button. Thank you. My name's Eric Kahn. My family has lived on Castaneda Drive since 1965. I want to be a good neighbor, and my comments are made not to undermine any particular project on Castaneda, but to bring attention to the commission of several items. I've never appeared before a panel such as yours, and other than the woman that I just heard speak, I didn't know what we're doing or how we're talking, so I'm just winging it. So if I may, in no particular order, a two-story house is out of character for a neighborhood of ranch-style single-family homes, or excuse me, single-story homes. None are Eichlers, and none have flat roofs. Most all of the existing homes are entry-level, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, which theirs is. They chose to take a second bedroom and or the third bedroom and put it into a second bedroom. Homes allowing young families access to the benefits of walkable distance to schools and shopping. If someone is allowed an addition, there should be additional off-street parking requirements. There should be a time restriction of, say, 5 years from the completion of any addition to the date that property is transferred in any manner to anybody. And finally, the homes were designed so that bathrooms are at one end of a house and the garages are at the end of the other. With a two-story house, they are able to look down into your private areas. I appreciated the comment of providing light and air by Tristan Warren just previous. And a two-story home does not provide light and air to its neighborhood's single-story homes. I've not been contacted by the homeowner. There's only a dozen homes on our street, and they have 20 letters of approval. The courtyard faces west, not south. The entire block is made out of stucco with horizontal and vertical siding, and there are no enclosed front yards on Castaneda. I'm hoping that covers everything. I'm hoping it wasn't too fast, but that's my comments, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Nita Nahore. Please go ahead and speak if you unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you
so much. So first of all, I want to thank commissioners. I realize that this is a very long meeting for you, and we appreciate all of your time and volunteerism for the community. So thank you. My family and I, we own the home on 5 Rio Court, which is a block upslope from this proposed or from this home. And the home has been in our family since the late 1970s. One of the things that we really appreciate about our home and that offers or affords us our property values as to where it is the views, the incredible views. And to the point of some of the people have spoken prior to me, we also really appreciate the fact that the homes in the community and the surrounding areas and the homes kind of downslope from our home and neighborhood are single stories. We're very, again, concerned that the modification that's proposed will impede our view, will impact our enjoyment rights, and the property values. Certainly, we're all in favor of upgrades and updating homes, which certainly helps improve our community and improve the general property values around us. But we do also want to make sure that the homes that we're looking at continues to stay within the continuity of the aesthetics of the neighborhood, which the proposed home and architecture or the plans that were submitted do not. And again, really just stressing the point of being upslope, having continuity with that line of sight. As you know, we have a view of the bay, we have a view of the airport, and we certainly don't want eyesore or kind of a peak in the roof lines. So thank you so much for your consideration. Again, we really do appreciate it. And we've enjoyed living and owning in the community so much for the last 40 plus years. Thank you again.
Thank you. Next, we have Rob. Rob, you may want to unmute yourself if you're muted.
Hello, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much for the opportunity for me and my family to speak on behalf of Ryan and Jisoo and their wonderful family.
Can you speak a little louder, please? It's a little bit hard to hear you.
Absolutely, no problem. My name is Robert Ardrey, and my family and I live at 1826 Loyola Drive, just up the hill from Ryan and Jisoo. We are in support of this project. We have reviewed and discussed this project with Jisoo and Ryan, and this endeavor not only helps their family expand and grow within their home, but also helps optimize their success as parents and active members of our city. This is a positive impact in terms of helping attract and retain families like ourselves who share our most cherished and highest priorities with Jisoo and Ryan, which is our children, family, and neighbors. Our family and Jisoo and Ryan's family have each been blessed with having 3 healthy, happy daughters. We've known them since 2016 as friends and neighbors. Jisoo and Ryan are incredibly active in our PTA, our volunteering and community building events, as well as our Girl Scout troops. As many of you know, when you're married to a Girl Scout troop leader, you are very lucky to have a partner exemplify the passion and joy as an active role model in our community for our children, especially our daughters. In my opinion, this project will positively impact our neighborhood and should be approved by the city of Burlingame because it is important to me that families are safe, secure, and comfortable in the homes and also feel respected, loved, and cared for by their neighbors like we do for their family. Also, it's important for this to set precedents for families like ourselves and others who may have bought homes that do not fit an expanding family, whether through adoption of children or aging parents with dementia-related illness. And it's nice to have homes that are safe, incredibly well designed, thoughtful, and modernized to our future growing needs of our community. I think that I've always believed that success is not entitled, it is earned. And it's really incredibly important for me to see new families like ourselves and Jisoo and Ryan be able to not only bring continuity to our neighborhood, but also really work very hard to improve our neighborhood, pay taxes, pay a lot more taxes than families that have been in Burlingame for 30 or 40 years. So I just really want you to know that I really love this family. I have 3 daughters, they have 3 daughters. It's important for us to think of the children and how much incredibly better our neighborhood is with wonderful, thoughtful, and active family members like Ryan and Jisoo. This is a beautiful project, very well designed. It has great safety and security, and also it's very hard to tell families moving from all over the country and the world, like myself, that if you buy a house, it's really at the mercy of your neighbors to
Rob,
determine whether you're going to stay in the neighborhood. Thank you. That's my time.
thank you. Can I remind everyone, please, that we have a long agenda tonight. And if you're going long, repeating things, or I'm not to be rude, we want to hear everybody's voices. But if you can just get to your point, because you're going to lose our attention actually after a little while anyway, we'd appreciate it. And we have a number of letters to read and chats to review. And so this item will be discussed for quite some time. Next, we have Kevin Levitt. Kevin, make sure you unmute yourself before you speak.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to participate and speak. Really here to support the application and the applicants. On a few points, just to echo what you just heard the previous speaker share in terms of, first and foremost, we've lived in this community for almost 7 years. Our family is right around the corner on Martinez Drive, and we've been on Martinez Drive for that entire time. We're lucky enough to know Ryan and Jisoo for almost just as long. And so just a few quick comments, if I may. First, about the design of the home itself. It falls consistent with what we see as we drive to visit Ryan and Jisoo, and I drive almost every day to work down Castaneda to get ultimately over to 101. There are multiple second-story homes. I believe there are 3 on Castaneda already. There are also some on our street on Martinez. There are 5 homes on Castaneda with courtyards. And then the flat roof line is deliberate to make sure that there's de minimis impact to anybody's view. And I believe, the immediate neighbors, at least here in this public forum, haven't indicated any objection to a second story sight line or second story in the design of it itself. I also want to comment just in terms of the community participation from Ryan and Jisoo. Our families met because we were coaching our then 4-year-olds soccer teams, Ryan and I, and Jisoo and Lori, my wife, have participated on the PTA at Franklin Elementary together, where Lori was, president, and Jisoo had a role as well for a couple of years, as well as running the Girl Scout troops for the 2 older girls. And then finally, just want to make the point that, we ourselves are looking to remain in the Burlingame community, and we know how challenging that can be. We're not fortunate enough to have families that have been here for decades, yet we chose to make Burlingame home, as the Choys have as well. And there has to be an opportunity for families like ours that contribute, participate, and engage and want the best for Burlingame and for the future to have the opportunity to grow in place. It's nearly impossible to move anywhere else within the community if you're lucky enough to get a foothold in. So thank you for recognizing those challenges and opportunities, as well as the design that's been brought for your review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Vivek Jain.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much to the Planning Commission for giving me a moment to speak. Really appreciate all of you. I'm here as a neighbor and speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, Shonal Jain, to lend our strong, enthusiastic support for Ryan Choi and Jisoo Park's planned home renovation at 1820 Castaneda. We live slightly up the hill on Toledo Avenue, and so we're a long-term part of the Mills Estates community here in Burlingame. And just to echo what you've heard from many other people, the Choi Park family are just truly wonderful, considerate neighbors who have added a great deal to our community up here in Mills Estates. We feel that their proposed home redesign will add a really beautiful new contemporary home to Mills Estates to give the growing family the room they need to remain here in Burlingame. So we would really like to give our full support to this project, which we feel is beautifully designed and well proportioned and aesthetically pleasing. I'm a very active exerciser. I walk the hills. It's really my happiest place on earth, the hills of Burlingame. And I've seen and gotten to know the look and feel of this neighborhood very strongly. There are a lot of beautiful 2-story houses up here in the hills, as well as a lot of developing contemporary houses. There's one on Martinez that just finished, and gorgeous contemporary house that is really becoming like one of the prides of our neighborhood. So I just wanted to speak as a person from Mills Estates, who myself, I think of myself as a good community member, and I'm in touch with lots of neighbors who are all celebrating, a diversity of styles, especially contemporary. And I also really just wanted to echo what Mr. Levitt and Mr. Ardrey had said earlier, just that the Choi Park family have really worked ultra hard and volunteered a great deal for the town of Burlingame with a lot of love in their hearts and a lot of dedication to our town, which we all think is really the best place on earth to live. They've volunteered with a lot of community organizations, just some of the warmest, most incredible neighbors that we have had here in our many, many years in Burlingame. So like to ask you for your support for their nicely designed project and give you our best regards. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Sin Chow. Please unmute yourself before speaking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Sin Chow, and my husband and I live at on Martinez Drive, and we just wanted to express our strong support for Jisoo and Ryan's project. In just echoing how tremendously wonderful we think they are and how active they are with the Franklin community. It would be a huge loss if they were forced to move out of their home. I've already, had several friends looking for larger houses, but were unsuccessful and have moved out of the Burlingame area to the detriment of the school community, because they were also very active parents. And so I want to echo what everyone's saying, but I also want to say from a personal perspective, it's tremendously tough to find a home in Burlingame, much less, a larger one, one that's affordable. And, I just looked on Redfin today, and there's currently actually no homes for sale in the Mills Estate area. So in the interest of time, I just, wanted to echo what's been said and to offer my support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and for keeping that brief. I believe that's all the hands that are up. We do have some chat entries. A number of them, I believe, have been addressed by the speakers already. Let's see what may be missing here.
Yes, Madam Chair, the chats were already addressed by the public speakers.
Okay, great.
Received several emails under public comment. However, those speakers also shared their comments during the public speaking period. So we're all set to go.
Okay, and I see Eric's hand is up again. Was that left over from before? Or Eric, are you trying to speak again? Please unmute yourself if you are speaking. Eric, would you like to speak? I see some movement there. So if I'm just giving you another 5 seconds, and I'm not sure why the hand's going up and down, up and down. Can you enter a chat really quickly and just tell us if you're trying to speak or not? I'm going to close a public hearing otherwise. All right, so with that, I'm going to close a public hearing. Commissioners' comments? Commissioner Loftus.
Yeah, I will take the baton from Commissioner Toronis and his questioning earlier, his comments earlier, and build on the last project. This does feel very box-like. It feels like it's not very well articulated. We had a project that probably is very similar to this. I don't remember if it was on Martinez. It was in the same neighborhood, opposite side of the street, a few months ago, and we went back and forth on that. That was where I first made the comment that, unlike many of the projects in the hills, these are houses side by side, separated by not a lot of space. So there is that street front issue again, that you have to find a way to contextualize the design. That one eventually, managed to get through after some pushing back and forth on it. I think the scale is incredibly important. The articulation is incredibly important. I think modernist houses can be more easily fit into ranch style communities, I think, because they bear a lot in common in that the ranch buildings are long, low, and rectangular in general. And so I think fine tuning that will be really, really important. But I think the real problem is the one that Commissioner Toronis pointed out. This feels like a box or a stacked box. And I'm not sure also what the single sloped roof is getting. This does not seem very Eichler-like. I know that term was used early on by the designer, but the architect, I don't think this is very Eichler-like personally. And I find the enclosed courtyard, the glazed enclosed courtyard, very odd. It's a pattern that I don't think makes a whole lot of sense in that neighborhood. So I think there's some work needed here.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I can appreciate the applicant's community service and everything, and I appreciate the outpour of support by everybody. But when we come back to the design of this, I agree that it is very boxy. I can appreciate the courtyard. I actually like a good courtyard design. However, most of the other the other homes on this lot, on this street, they have low 4 to 5 foot low walls or a low fence and some landscaping that's helping to define that courtyard. This, it might as well be built in. And I don't think that it's not pedestrian friendly, it's not residential. So it doesn't work. Maybe if it were more of a landscape wall and then had something behind it, but right now it's a very prominent feature in the design. I think that the second story patios, both in the front and the back, really are just screaming, look in my yard. And so they're just not in the right spot. And I would feel for the neighbors next door too. So, if this was a much bigger lot out in the hills, fine, you can do those things. But I don't think that this is kind of fitting in with that context. A lot of huge windows, a lot of sun exposure. I think that that's going to be actually an uncomfortable space with all of that open glazing. So I think that there's a lot to be looked at here, and I agree, it's not Eichler-like. I like the Eichlers that are further up the hill, but this doesn't really give any of those forms and shapes that go to that vocabulary. So I think that there's some work to be done here. I don't know that I'm afraid of the second story, because there's a lot of vertical height along this hillside, and I think that there's some room for it, but I'm not sure that this one is addressing it in the right scale. So I think that like I said, there's some work to be done to try and nestle that in and get the shapes to work a little bit better.
Commissioner Camerado?
I agree with Commissioner Schmidt. I think that the first thing I do want to say is I really do like the courtyards. I know I've had a number of friends that live on that street, and the parents have kind of enclosed that front courtyard area, but they've done it with such a subtle little fence with or a little bit of a wall with a nice gate, with a nice entry, and it's just nicely done, and it's very soft to the eye and not glaring at you. And I think the project does need a lot of work. But I think everybody, as Commissioner Schmidt said, I agree with him, and that's it.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, I'm just going to agree with my fellow commissioners, just a couple of details. I agree that courtyard houses can work, but normally when they do work, particularly like with some Eichlers, they're more transparent, more see-through, they're more neighborly. This one appears to be sort of turning its back on the street with a 9-foot glass wall that appears to be opaque glass. So if they could revisit that, perhaps it could work. The rear landscaping is what appears to be a large turf area and then a fire pit off in the corner and some steps coming out the back. I think if that could be revisited, then there's a lot of space to create some rooms that aren't right up against a neighboring fence. Lastly, I think we've had enough concerns expressed regarding views that because this is in the hillside area, we should be requiring story poles for the project before it comes back for action. Thank you.
Commissioner Sargent?
Yeah, I was going to make the same comment about the story poles. I think they're needed as well. I think one other thing I wanted to mention that hasn't been brought up is there's a small rear deck here. There's actually 2 second-story decks, one in the front that looks to be set back from the side of the house, and the one in the rear, which doesn't look to be set back quite so much. And I'm a little concerned that's going to create a viewing platform into the neighboring yard. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And I'm wondering if with the nature of the comments we're receiving, whether this would be a good candidate for design review consultant. I think it might help move the project along more quickly.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, everyone's touched on the comments that I was going to make. That's why I dropped my hand earlier. But the one I wanted to say was I think that the landscape plan needs a little bit more development. There's really nothing there. The neighbors on the sides are concerned, have expressed concerns about privacy, and some hedge or something along the sides could help the design as well as the neighbors' concerns. So I think the landscape plan needs to get moved along further as well.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Sargent. I'm going to make the motion to send this to design review consultant, and with the direction that story poles be erected before this comes back for action.
Second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Taronis, seconded by Commissioner Sargent. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote? Oh, Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I just wanted to say as we do this, and I'm in agreement, but this is not really trying to say anything bad about what's going on, but what we want to do is help it move forward. This isn't a no, this is, I want it to go forward better. And again, I appreciate the outpour of support by the community, and I can certainly appreciate the participation of the family in the community. So we're trying to do this in a way to not turn you away from what you're doing, but to actually help it go faster, better, and kind of get in with what we're looking for to help it move along. So I'm in support of this in hopes that it will actually bring about a better action.
Yeah, I want to ditto what Commissioner Schmidt just said, and I was going to say the same thing before going to a vote. I think that the support by the neighbors and friends is very important, and it was very good to hear from everyone. We just want to make sure that you understand our role as planning commissioners is not to, play favorites, or it's about friendships and such. We love active citizens and those who volunteer heavily in the community. We really appreciate that. But we have our role, we're kind of wear our hats as planning commissioners to help move your project successfully through so that you can build the house of your dreams. So now we are going to, if there's no other discussion, we will take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Camarado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus?
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Aye.
Fair say.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0-0. We now move on to item 9D, 1120 Cortez Avenue. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we can identify you and prepare you to speak. Have all commissioners present visited the project site, and do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling with a detached garage at 1120 Cortez Avenue, zoned R1. The subject property is downsloping towards the rear with an approximately 4.5-foot difference between the front and rear property lines. And there's also a slight cross slope from left to right. The applicant's proposing to demolish the existing 1-story single-family house with a detached garage and construct a new 2-story single-family house with a detached garage, totaling 3,397 square feet, where 3,420 square feet is the maximum allowed. The new house would have 5 bedrooms and would require 3 parking spaces, 2 of which must be covered, and those would be provided for in the new detached garage. Therefore, the project is in compliance with the parking requirement and all other zoning requirements are met. There is an adjacent redwood tree on the property to the right. Arborist was hired to look at any impacts that could result as a result of this project. And they have noted that the existing fence will act as tree protection, but that if roots are encountered, they may need some hand digging or root pruning and to consult with an arborist. So our arborist reviewed that report and concurred with that. There is a tree proposed for removal, but it is not a protected size tree. All other zoning requirements are met and the design review criteria is provided for you in your staff report. I'm available to answer any questions, and I know the project architect is also available this evening as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? And all right, I will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project?
Hi, I'm Meredith Dunn. I'm here with my husband Blair Dunn and Una Kinsella, our architect. Thank you for having us. I know it's a late night, and thank you, Catherine, for your support and guidance along the way. You've been very helpful to us. A little bit about our family and the project. We moved to Burlingame over 7 years ago. We loved our block of Cortez. We love the proximity to Roosevelt and walking distance to Broadway and downtown. We originally had 2 kids. We now have 3 boys in 5th, 3rd, and TK at Roosevelt and Franklin, and a COVID puppy, and are outgrowing our 1,700 square foot house. We knew all along that we would either need to move or add to our house as our kids grew. And really, we knew we loved the street because of the trees, but we've lucked out with like the best block ever in Burlingame. We love our neighbors. Our neighbors on either side have lived here for 30 plus years, raised their kids. And we decided we wanted to stay and add on to our house. We initially, when we kicked off our work with Una, who actually was recommended by our neighbor, which is hysterical. And it was a great recommendation. We initially hired a structural engineer to help us figure out if we could add on the existing foundation and add a 2nd floor, or if it was better to start over, given the house is close to 100 years old. And through that journey, we decided to start over and redesign the house, given the amount of changes we would need to make. We designed our home to obviously meet our needs and our family's needs. Hopefully you will agree, fit in with the design aesthetic of our block and the Easton Addition. And we did work with our neighbors along the way, taking in especially our neighbors on either side, Fred and Roz on the right and Julie and Paul on the left, to make sure that they were aware of what we were doing. We ran the plans by them in advance before submitting them. We took into consideration their feedback and actually made some changes on the fences and the property line. And they have to date been super supportive. So we've also, our whole block is aware of what we're doing, and we have not heard any concerns to date. So I'll turn it over to Una to walk through the project and answer any questions.
Thanks, Meredith. Hi, everyone. I'm Una Kinsella. I'm going to keep this really brief because Meredith did an amazing job explaining our process and our goals and our desires to really keep this home, this new home, in keeping with the existing charm and character of Cortez Avenue. And as she said, I'm friends with many people on the block. And so it's really important to me that I've designed something that's really a great add to the block. Not only owe it to my clients, but to the neighbors who I know very well. And it's an awesome street. And there's some really great character on the street, both new and original architectural homes, and with high character and lots of great detailing. And so we tried to pull some inspiration from several of the homes on the block. And I'm just going to point out a couple of things that are maybe not be super obvious on the plans, but we actually we pulled the rear of the home in and the front of the house back from the street so that we can create more outdoor living space. We created a nice gracious porch on the front of the house that's very in keeping with some of the other newer homes on the street. And the rear yard, because it has a cross slope, as Catherine mentioned, is really challenging because you come out of the first floor and have to go down almost an entire flight of steps to get to the yard, which is a really important feature of their property. So we by removing the old home, we were able to lower the new home and get that main living space closer to the rear yard. And by building a sort of a split level patio to the left side, which is the higher side of the lot, we were able to achieve more of an indoor outdoor living space that's really conducive to the kind of living that they want to do on the property, but they haven't been able to do. And then we did a really good job of trying to keep within all of the zoning regulations. The height is, below the maximum height limitation. We've met all the declining height envelope setbacks. And tried to do some really nice articulation on the sides and keep, the neighbors' privacy and light in consideration. So we hope that you're in support of it, and I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that you might have questions on.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Toronis?
Thank you. I actually agree that this might be one of, if not the best blocks in Burlingame. I'm not too far from it, and I can't disagree. Just a couple of technical questions, Una. The hardy cement shingles, will those require corner boards, or can those be mitered or meshed?
Well, you used to only be able to get the corner boards for them, but I've done it recently where you can actually they come with corner pieces so that you can actually make it look like an original detail.
Okay, that's what I was hoping. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And my only other question, the outlines that you have on the roof, is that for future solar or for a solar, well, not future.
Yeah, no, it's solar, and we just wanted to show where the potential for solar panels will go. We've met with one, and we're getting probably another proposal for where the solar panels can go based on the solar orientation and the trees. So those are the areas that we have to work with. We will not be filling all of the roof with solar panels. We're just showing you that we've accommodated for the maximum that we can put on there, which is probably going to be like maybe 25 panels.
Got it. Okay.
To get this, I mean, we have to work with the REACH code on this. So this is going to be full electric.
Yep. Okay.
Solar.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions from the commissioners, would anyone from the public like to speak on this item? Are there any chats or emails?
Madam Chair, I don't see any chats and no emails submitted.
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Camerado?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you guys did a great job, Una. That's really beautiful design. This is one of my favorite streets as well. Have a lot of good old friends on this street. You've done a great job, and I love your design. So thank you for being conscientious, and to the neighbors as well, and making changes and sitting with your neighbors prior to coming to planning. So thank you for that.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I wanted to say it's a great design. I opened up the package and thoroughly enjoyed looking at it, and it was a very easy read and very clear on what you're trying to accomplish. So I really appreciate that. It made our job easier. So I'd like to see the project go forward. Unless others have something that they want to say, I'd like to make a motion that this come back on the consent calendar.
I'll second that motion. So we have a motion, not a commotion, but a motion by Commissioner Schmidt, seconded by myself, Chair Say, and I see that Commissioner Loftus has his hand up. Is that to discuss the motion? You have something else you want to add?
It was. I sort of put my hand up right as this was all happening. I had the same impression that this should come back on the consent calendar, with one question that I have to raise, because it typically we don't miss this. It looks to me like the plate heights are 9191, which is a little bit unusual for us to approve. And I wonder if that's a concern to anyone else.
From what I recall seeing, the house to the right seems fairly tall. I don't know if it's if this is in line with I don't think we have the height of the neighbor. Maybe it's on the survey.
I guess my concern is that, and maybe this answers the question, is such a well-designed house that maybe it just doesn't matter. But I have to ask the question because it seems unfair to not ask the question, since we always ask the question, it always comes up. And most of the time it comes up because there's some scale problem going on. But this one is so well designed that maybe it simply doesn't have a scale problem. But I feel obliged to raise the question.
Yeah, good question. Commissioner Schmidt?
I appreciate you bringing it up, Commissioner Loftus, and I agree that it is something that we look at and I've come to appreciate looking at these projects. However, I would also agree that the articulation and the way the roof planes and everything are working, it really holds its own and doesn't actually demonstrate an out of scale. It actually demonstrates an in scale through the use of that articulation on the front. So you might be right numerically, but I feel good about the scale.
Well, I'm good with that answer. I wanted to make sure that that we addressed it like we address it on everything else, and it is on a case-by-case basis. And I can see Commissioner Toronis is. I'll shut up.
So, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, Commissioner Loftus. I was just going to say that, yeah, along those lines, oftentimes when we see the taller plate height on that first floor, we see the porch elements also reaching up to that height. On this one, what I'm seeing is porch columns that are actually down below that 9'1" plate height. The beams start from that point, above those posts. So what I get concerned with when we have 9-foot first floors or 10-foot first floors is that the porches also reach up to those, and then you don't get that sort of tuck under aspect as you're stepping onto the porch. So that mitigates it for me, at least on this one in particular.
All right, so with no more discussion, we will go to a roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Camarado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus?
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Aye.
Vice Chair Toronis?
Aye.
And Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0-0. We are going to move on to agenda item 9E7, La Mesa Court. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we can be prepared for you to speak when it is your turn. I am recusing from this item, so I will let Commissioner Schmidt take over from here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none.
Excuse me, I was looking for my mute button. I had a discussion with the property owner on site today.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? No? Okay. Commissioner Say is, or actually Chair Say is recusing from this item. Let the record note that all commissioners were present and visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Sure. This is an application for design review, hillside area construction permit, special permit, and side setback variance to add a new attached garage and first floor addition to an existing single-family dwelling at 7 La Mesa Court, zoned R1. The subject property is an interior flag lot at the end of La Mesa Court. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing attached garage into living area and add a new attached garage at the front along the left side of the house. The applicant is also proposing a 332 square foot first floor addition at the rear of the house. Proposed project will have a total floor area of 3,748 square feet, where 5,320 square feet is the maximum allowed, and that includes the attached garage. Just to summarize, the application's design review for the attached garage, hillside area construction permit, special permit for an attached garage, and lastly, a left side setback variance for the attached garage, 5 foot 3 inches proposed, or 7 feet is a minimum required. That concludes my staff report. If you have any questions for staff, I can take those now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Nobody's moving. Okay, then do we have any, let's see. We're going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
I'm Judith Mattingly, the architect. Sorry, Ben.
Hi, this is Ben Patch and Tamara Romanek. We're the homeowners. The primary reason for us doing this project is for us to make the home more functional and usable for us. So a couple of reasons behind that. With both of us working from home right now in the pandemic, we don't have segregated working space, and we anticipate that we'll both be working from home more frequently post-COVID, even after we return to the office. We also don't have segregated guest rooms for visitors, which we anticipate. We frequently have family visiting pre-COVID. We anticipate that to happen post-COVID. And then with teenage kids, we've also somewhat outgrown our space and open floor plan. There's not great space for them to kind of have separate space for themselves and friends when entertaining resumes in a post-COVID world. So we think that this will address all of those concerns. Also, with the layout of the lot, the proposed design is not really visible from the street, and we don't feel impacts our one adjacent neighbor in any way, and there should be no view issues as well.
Thanks, Ben. And I can just sort of address some of the mechanics here too, and why we're in front of you. As Ben said, the lot is oddly shaped. The house is wedged onto it now. We wanted to maintain the ranch style of the house. And so the only place that presented an opportunity for an addition is the side where the garage is now, which is labeled remodeled area on this site plan that's on the screen. And so the only option we saw was to turn the garage into living space and build a new garage in front of it. And then we were literally between a rock and a hard place because the existing garage is less than, it encroaches into the side yard setback. And we are required to put in 2 covered parking spaces given the number of bedrooms. And we cannot build a garage wide enough to meet the minimum, 20-foot width criteria within the setbacks. So we have asked for the variance to encroach into the side yard setback. I think that's all I need to say right now.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we're gonna, let's see, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak?
I think we need to take questions from the commissioners to the applicant at this point, don't we?
Well, we can do that too. I don't see any hands for speaking up anyway. So commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant? Okay, I don't see any hands there either.
See, you were way ahead of me. Sorry for saying anything. That's why I'm leaving.
Thanks anyway, though. Okay, so given that the commissioners don't have any questions and nobody else is raising their hand, I'm going to close the public hearing. And commissioners, any comments? Vice Chair Taranis.
Yeah, thank you. When we hear the word variance and we see the phrase hillside area construction permit, our attention is always piqued, and we have to be conscious of those special requests. However, in looking at this application, it seems relatively straightforward. It's somewhat low slung, a single floor addition. A single floor addition elsewhere might not even be coming before us if it weren't for the discretionary permits that that they're having to ask for. You know, we've allowed for, we've made the findings for variance applications in the past when we've extended an existing non-conforming condition. And in this case, we're accommodating a single floor addition for a required garage. You know, in looking at the plan, you know, the house on the one hand, at a glance looks big, but when you start dissecting the floor plan, you know, it's got a lot of large living area, but the bedrooms are somewhat limited. So, you know, I can see where they're going programmatically in terms of what they'd like to add. And the only real place to do that is the existing garage. So I think it's relatively straightforward. I can't see where there would be any view obstructions relative to the hillside area construction permit. You know, but I would encourage the applicants to make sure that they've talked in detail with their neighbors about what they're proposing, so that a request, if we don't require the story poles, so that a request does not come out of the woodwork later as this moves forward. All of that said, I think it's a relatively straightforward project and could move forward.
Commissioner Gall? You're on mute, sir. You're still on mute.
Is that better?
Yep, that's a lot better.
Yeah, in my discussion with the property owner today, she indicated that that she had shared the plan with the neighbor and that they had talked about it, and standing in front of the building, standing in front of the house, it appears that there is no view blockage, in my opinion. And I like the project. I think it's a good solution to a tight space. So I would like to see it move forward as well.
Okay, and I would say that given the 10-foot easement that's on that garage side, it's not like we're up against the property line and then an adjoining neighbor 4 feet over. So it seems very reasonable to grant that extension, and it seems to be a good solution to a problem. So do I have anybody wanting to make a motion?
Sure, I'll bring this, I'll move that we bring this back on consent.
I'll second that motion.
Great. With that, we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent and a second by Commissioner Camerado. Can we get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Vice Chair Coronis,
Aye.
Acting Chair Schmid.
Aye. So that makes us 6-0-1-0. The motion passes. And do I need to read the?
No,
other-
we're done with the item. Thank you very much. You're ready to take over. So now we're moving on to our last design review agenda item for the evening, 9F, 1244 El Camino Real. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we can prepare you to speak when it is your turn. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? I will note that Commissioner Vice Chair Taronis is recusing from this item. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. This is an excuse me. This is application for design review and a parking variance for parking stackers for a 2-story addition to add 1 dwelling unit and a new attached garage at the rear of an existing 2-story 4-unit apartment building at 1244 El Camino Real, zoned R3. The project site currently contains 4 1-bedroom residential units within a 2-story apartment building. And at the rear of the property is a detached carport that can hold up to 5 vehicles. The proposal includes demolishing the rear carport and adding a new 2-story addition at the rear of the apartment building. And it would include 1 unit with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the 2nd floor with a garage below. Design review is required for the 2nd-story addition, as any 2nd-story addition to multifamily housing does trigger design review. There are no changes to the front facade of the building, and most of the side portions of the building will remain as is as well. The overall height of the proposed addition is just slightly taller than the existing building at 23 feet 6 inches above the average top curb level, where 55 feet is the maximum height. The existing building measures 20 feet 5 inches in height. Right now, there are a total of 6 on-site parking spaces required. The existing carport at the rear does provide for 5 spaces as noted. And within the front setback, there are 2 uncovered spaces that are considered existing non-conforming, and those would remain with this project. The proposed unit does require 2 additional parking spaces, so there'd be a total of 8 parking spaces required for the site, 80% of which are supposed to be covered. And therefore, the garage below the new addition would provide 6 parking spaces total. So it's basically 3 separate entrances with a stacker in each, or a mechanical car lift in each of those spaces that would provide the 6 covered spaces. So while the project does comply with the overall number of off-street parking spaces that are required, because there are no provisions in the zoning code for this area of town. For example, in our downtown specific plan area boundaries, projects can look at creative parking solutions that are allowed by right. And in North Burlingame and North Rollins Road, we do allow mechanical parking stackers with approval of a conditional use permit. The tool in this case is simply a variance request. And so that is before you tonight for consideration along with their design review. So I've provided for you the findings needed for multifamily design review, as well as the required findings for the variance, which is for the stackers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'd also like to note that we did receive two comments through our public comments. I'll go ahead and read those. I'll start with the first one. It says, hello, I would like to express my concern over the proposed project at 1244 El Camino Real. With the pandemic, many are still working from home. The construction noise will be disruptive to people who have to work from home. Also, if you just drive along El Camino Real itself in Burlingame, there are dozens of for rent signs. We clearly do not need more rental units at this time. Best, Aaron and Gino. And the next letter was received this evening. It says, we are the neighbors at 1251 Cappuccino Avenue, a single-story home with a backyard kitty corner to northeast of the project site. The proposed project would put a 25-foot high apartment within a few feet of our property. This would both block a substantial portion of our view of the horizon and also put a large window directly overlooking our backyard. Tenants would have a bird's eye view into our backyard and back windows of our house, resulting in a significant loss of privacy. This would hence decrease the overall charm and value of the property. An increased distance from the rear of the building to the back end of the lot would improve this situation a bit, but this new building height will still negatively impact the quality of our living experience and the value of the property if we were to sell our home. Sincerely, Marcus and Renee Bollinger. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now, and the project architect is available as well.
Thank you, Catherine. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward and state your name and add anything you would like regarding this project?
So hi, we are from Dryling Toner's Architecture, presenting to you the addition at 1244 El Camino Real. I'm Juliana Papaceno, the project manager, with Alicia Ader in the wings. We are requesting design review as well as a parking variance. The owners of this property are the Chan family. They are local developers and have appeared before the commission in the recent past to build 2 single-family residences for their family on Burlingame Avenue. They had planned to attend the meeting, but probably due to the late hour, aren't here tonight. but they are committed to preserving the existing building and are currently renovating the existing 4 units. Through this application, they are also looking to create an incremental improvement with an additional unit rather than maxing out the site's development opportunity. Preserving this building strengthens El Camino's character as a stretch of road representing multifamily housing types over the decades. The proposed addition strives to respect the existing architecture by mimicking the massing of a courtyard apartment and the existing roof condition. The proposed second floor evokes the U shape of a typical courtyard apartment, and the addition roof matches the existing building slope and uses a flat roof to bridge the volumes together. The tall clearances required for the car stacker made it impossible to achieve a consistent plate height across the second floor. However, the addition does not tower over the existing building because of its raised first floor and the gently sloping site. A tidy facade is maintained by aligning the proposed second floor overhang and windowsills with window openings on the existing building. So in addition to the design review, we are requesting a variance to employ car stackers to meet our covered parking requirements. The exceptional condition we're facing are the existing conditions. We're just finding it difficult to comply with today's code in the existing building. So if you look in the immediate vicinity of this project, you'll see 2 emerging parking typologies: ground level parking with living spaces above, or carports abutting the rear property line. So if that carport were to be built today, that would require a variance for building in the rear and side setbacks. But it's not a desirable pattern to replicate because it requires difficult driving maneuvers to utilize the spaces farthest from the driveway. And so we are seeking a variance to the existing parking typology of living spaces over parking with current technology, thus preserving the existing building. The property is able to support the required number of total parking spots, but without the use of car stackers, it is difficult to provide the required number of covered parking spaces in a manner consistent with the existing architecture and within the confines of the rear setback. So thank you for discussing this project so late into the evening. Alvin has been able to join us, so I will pass it to him.
Hi, thank you so much for your time and for staying so late. Just like to introduce myself. My name is Alvin Chan. I work with my father, and we have a family-owned real estate development and operating company. I grew up here in the area. My father's been here for 40 years. I went to school at St. Catherine, just down the street from this property. I just wanted to reiterate that we're committed to the Burlingame area. We're really excited to have the opportunity to buy this building and to renovate it and hopefully add to it and make it a long-term residential option for current and future residents. And we're also long-term holders of the properties that we own and invest in. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Looks like everyone's petered out. Would anyone from the public like to speak on this item? Do we have any emails? Additional emails?
Madam Chair, I don't see no new emails and no chats.
Okay, I do see one person with their hand up. Marcus Bollinger? Marcus, would you like to speak?
Yeah, no, we're the neighbors who wrote the note. We were wondering what the distance was to the end of the property at the back end, because we have, there's just this issue of very tall window. It's going to be a perfect view right into our backyard, and it's unfortunate. We basically have a nice little sort of view of the horizon there and the sky, and so it's just going to be a kind of a tower kind of right in the backyard with it's just the main view from that back window from that apartment will basically just their main view will be our backyard.
So in response to that, we are complying with the 15-foot rear setback. And those large windows at the rear are at the point closest to your property. That's actually a staircase. So there are no living spaces there where people will be looking out. There'll be a landing, so it'll be lower than, the window will be above the typical viewpoint of a person walking by those stairs. And just keep in mind that the top of plate at that point is 22'5", and our top of bridge is at 24'5". So it's not 25 feet tall.
Right. It looked like the roof was 25 feet tall, but right. No, I understand.
Is it 7 feet from the property line?
15.
15. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so seeing that there are no other questions, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes, I think that in one respect, I like the idea that we're able to actually work with this property and it can expand a bit, but not become one of the 5 and 6 story multifamilies that we've been seeing in other parts of El Camino. It's not trying to overbuild the property. It's just trying to make an incremental increase. So I think I could, for me, I think it's not much bigger than what's there, and it shifts things around on the property. And I think it could be a good project and approvable. So, thanks.
Any other comments? Commissioner Sargent? Commissioner Sargent, are you muted?
Not anymore.
Okay, good.
I agree with Commissioner Schmidt's assessment. I think it's a good project. I think I can find support for the variance application for the parking lifts. That's something that we've seen in other parts of the city, actually in this general vicinity of El Camino. And, I realize there's, it doesn't seem like there's a shortage of rental apartment space right now, but I think that's going to change pretty quickly. And I think as a city, we still need to be looking for ways to increase this type of housing for the community. So I move we bring this back on the consent calendar.
Commissioner Camarado, did you?
Yes, I agree with my fellow commissioners. I can find I can support the parking variance, and I would second Commissioner Sargent's motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Commissioner Camarado. Is there any discussion on the motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Camarado.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall. No?
He's
You're
gone.
muted, Commissioner Gall.
Maybe he.
No, he's not on here.
Oh, he's not.
He might have had an internet drop or something. Okay. Commissioner Loftus.
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
And Chair Say.
Aye. So looks like the motion passes 5011. We'll treat Commissioner Gall as absent from this vote. Now we move on to agenda item number 10, commissioners' reports. I believe we have none. And then on to agenda item 11, directors' reports.
So I came back, but Mike left. What's up with that?
I thought he left with you, Richard.
Sorry.
So let's see, first Commissioner Rich Sargent, we didn't want to lift you off easy, so we made this a little bit extra long meeting for your last meeting. So hopefully you don't mind.
Well, you know me, when 3 words can be used to say 1 word, I always choose 3. So extra
right.
long meetings are my preference.
So does that go the same for construction, 3 nails instead of 1 in your house?
No,
Okay.
talk is cheap. Nails, they cost a lot, especially right now.
So we don't really have anything to report from the last city council meeting. You were all there at the joint meeting as well, so we won't need to go over that. We did have one item, and that staff is preparing to bring before you the zoning code update. And because it encompasses the entire zoning code, it's a pretty large document, so we wanted to break it up into smaller pieces. There were 2 questions posed for you to think about, and that is, which elements are you more interested in reviewing first, or just in general? And then also, how would you like to review these? Do you want to have study sessions at 6 o'clock before a planning commission meeting? Do you want to do it during a planning commission meeting? Or perhaps do them on separate days during the week? So just wanted to get your thoughts on that so that we can better prepare ourselves.
Well, let's do it tonight.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Taronis.
I was debating whether to stay on or not.
Yeah.
Now,
Before we lose Commissioner Sargent, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
I'll throw out a couple of quick opinions. I think that there are some hotspot areas that we have that may need attention. I mean, staff knows what applications and what areas developers are inquiring about probably better than any of us. But I think developing the standards moving forward with the Broadway mixed use area, the California mixed use area, and then the Bayshore area, like we talked about at our joint meeting, are important areas to be focused on. I think that, sorry, just waving to staff. I would have a preference for doing it separate from a regular meeting so that we can kind of focus. If that's a study session beforehand, or I'd be willing to meet on a separate day of the week, but I know other commissioners may not have that flexibility. So I think if we could do, if it's an hour study session at 6 o'clock before a regular meeting, we could get some focused attention on it and not have it be something that we're sort of paying half attention to towards the end of a meeting or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just my thoughts.
I see a lot of nodding heads. So
I agree.
we can try the study session, but we'll want to remain focused during that 1 hour because it goes by quickly. So let's give that a try first. If we feel like we need to do them on separate days, perhaps a longer session, then we can explore that. But so we'll see if we can get something to you next month. So either for the May 10th or May 24th meeting, I think it is. So great. Well, I appreciate all your feedback. Thank you.
All right. I guess with that, I will say au revoir. my last chair meeting. So Commissioner Schmidt gets to take over.
Good job, Audrey.
Good job.
Nice job.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for bearing with me. All on Zoom, full year.
Yes.
We thank the king.
Thank you, Chair Say. We really appreciate all your hard work this last year. Of course, to outgoing Commissioner Sargent as well. We really enjoyed working with you all these years and enjoy or look forward to seeing all your construction projects in the future around Burlingame. I also wanted to note that incoming Planning Commissioner Raymond Larios was in attendance tonight at the last meeting, at the joint meeting. So we feel like he'll be definitely prepared to fill the shoes. And Commissioner Sargent will also bring by that resolution for you signed by everybody. So you can have that hanging on your wall right behind you there. So
Ray has some big shoes to fill.
That's true.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner
He
Sargent.
says- he
Well,
says I
thanks
do,
very
and
much, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work.
It's been great. It's hard to believe that I've been doing this almost the entire time of my older son's life and for longer than my younger son has been alive. So it's like, but no, it's been a great experience. I've learned so much, and you know, volunteerism is about giving, but it's also amazing how much you get back. So I've learned so much from my colleagues and from staff, and it's really been an enriching experience. So it's, definitely some things that are good for me that I'm moving on, but I'm going to miss it a lot as well. So good luck to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night.
So with that, I'm sorry, did Director Gardner say
I was
something?
just saying, don't be a stranger. We will see you again.
He knows where to find us.
Well, I don't know. The city hall's closed and it says don't come in.
He's gonna Zoom bomb a meeting in the future.
Don't worry, I
Thank you,
won't.
everybody.
All right, good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Meeting at 10:40.